Welcome to Season 4 of the Armchair Athletes on CMRU.ca.
We're here to talk to 4 major American sports leagues.
Your favorite sports show on CMRU.ca.
With Clayton.
Give me a break. You guys have proven nothing.
Taylor, if you ever want to get rid of him, you're never going to get anything for him.
Terrell.
Every team plays at that stadium. The Orioles have to hit to the same wall, too.
And Will.
Every week, there's a new report that's like, Miami is the top suitor for Damian Lillard.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Armchair Athletes, not live on CMRU.ca, with Clayton,
Terrell,
and Will. Taylor is not here today, but we've got special guest Alex.
Yeah,
Taylor looks
Alex
real different
from
today.
the Coast to Coast Pod. We have to state everyone's credibility on our show, or else our audience is like, "Who is this guy?" So we've got Alex from the Coast to Coast Pod. And Alex, how are you doing today?
I am doing A-OK. How are y'all doing, fellas?
I'm doing good. So I guess I should mention that as we're recording this, it's around 3:00 p.m. on Wednesday, April the 23rd, 2025. I don't know if the 2025 was necessary for when people listen to this.
Continuity.
I think we can figure it out. Our fans are smart.
But so just to give some kind of context, yesterday was, I guess we'll just jump right into the NHL then, right from here. So I was going to say that yesterday was when the Florida Panthers defeated the Tampa Bay Lightning in Game 1, and that was surprisingly not very close, is what I should say, as the Panthers won that game 6-2, winning Game 1. The Lightning were my pick to win the Stanley Cup. Alex, what were your thoughts on that game?
I didn't think Matthew Tkachuk would come back with the fire that he did.
I didn't either. I thought it would take him, I thought eventually in this series Tkachuk would be engaged in it. I didn't think that early on, scoring 2 goals and an assist in his first game back. I thought it'd take at least a couple periods to get back into it.
Also, Vasilevsky was just a massive sieve the entire game.
Yeah.
Like a .692 save percentage or something like that.
Yeah, and he was a huge reason why I picked Lightning to win the Stanley Cup this year, because he seemed to return to form in the regular season. I think he'll be a Vezina candidate. They haven't announced it yet, but I think he will be this year. And for me, Vasilevsky, when he's at his best, give me him over any other goalie in the NHL in a playoff game. And the reason why I say that, in those Stanley Cup runs for the Tampa Bay Lightning, he was absolutely incredible, especially the 2021 run for the Lightning where he won the Conn Smythe.
I mean, dissecting that a bit more, I definitely don't have the Lightning going to the Stanley Cup final at all. I have them losing in the Eastern Conference final to Carolina.
Okay.
If I'm picking a goalie that I need to win one game or carry me through a playoff series, it'd probably be Connor Hellebuyck at this point, just because there's less question marks around him. But I definitely had Tampa going over Florida just because there's so many less question marks. And after that first game, there are significantly more question marks for Tampa than there is for Florida. I didn't expect anything like that.
No, I didn't either. And it will be interesting to see what happens in Game 2. I think you're going to see a better Lightning team in that game. You certainly hope so for the Lightning. This is a star-filled series, and I think that was kind of – I don't know if it was necessarily surprising that Florida had won. I think maybe for some people – I think that a lot of people were expecting the Lightning to win this series. I've seen a lot of people picking the Lightning to go to the Stanley Cup final, much like I did. But Florida, I think a lot of people still respect them. They've made it to 2 straight Stanley Cup finals. They won the Stanley Cup last season. I just think that they struggled towards the end of the season, and there was the question marks around Tkachuk, which ended up being answered yesterday, as you had said there, Alex. And I expect the rest of the series. I think it'll be a good series. It's a star-filled series with future Hall of Famers, and we'll see where it goes from here.
No rust for Tkachuk at all.
What?
Matthew Tkachuk hasn't played since the 4 Nations since February, and there's no rust at all.
It's incredible.
What a gamer.
Yeah, it really is incredible. And moving on here, I guess, now to the next series within the Atlantic Division, we've got the Toronto Maple Leafs up 2-0 against the Ottawa Senators. This is uncharted territory for this group of the Leafs of Matthews, Marner, and Nylander. They've never had a 2-0 lead in the playoffs previously. Alex, is this year different for the Toronto Maple Leafs?
If you follow my bracket, no.
Oh,
I had Ottawa winning in 7, and I guess they have to lose 3 to win in 7, but it's not looking good for my pick. Toronto's coming out with a lot more fire than pretty much anyone expected them to. I guess me, I'm anyone. Stolarz is doing really well. I was expecting for Ottawa, like Boston Allmark to make a return, and very emphatically no. With the first game, Ottawa got a lesson in discipline of you got to kind of keep your emotions in check. It was a little bit better through that second game there, but they at least showed that they could somewhat hang with Toronto, forcing it to overtime. So I'm not sold on it being a new Toronto squad yet, but they're definitely showing capabilities of being able to actually be a fairly deep team now. If Stolarz can stay in the condition that he's in, that's been their issue for the past number of years is goaltending with Freddie, and then Joseph Wool got injured in the series against the the Bruins. So if they can keep Stolarz happy and healthy, and if that doesn't work, Wool can come in. I don't see any reason why Toronto can't go deep here.
No, I don't either. And I think that is a huge difference from those past Leafs teams that you mentioned there, Alex, is the goaltending. Anthony Stolarz was incredible in the regular season, 4th in the NHL in goals saved above expected, and has had 2 good games here early on against the Ottawa Senators. I think, though, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, you talked about how it's a lesson for the Senators. And to me, this is what's different in this series as opposed to past Leafs series. They're the more experienced team in this one. And I don't think that they've been the more experienced team in a playoff series since that Montreal series in 2021, at least off the top of my head. Maybe the Columbus series, but even then that Jackets team had just beaten the Tampa Bay Lightning the previous year. So I think that this is they are the more experienced team for once. And I really think that this series is the Leafs series to lose, which I think maybe has been the case in the past as well. But I think this year they're showing, at least so far, trying to convince people that it is a different Leafs team. And especially I think you see that with the performances of the core 4 early on in this series. Mitch Marner, who's taken a lot of heat in the past for past playoff performances, with 3 points in game 1 and then another point yesterday in game 2. John Tavares with 4 points. Austin Matthews with 3 and William Nylander with 3. So that core 4, they're all point per game right now so far through this series. So far, so good for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Unless you had anything else you want to add, Alex, we could move on.
Just real quick, it's amazing what difference coaching can make with Craig Berube behind the Leafs bench now rather than Sheldon Keefe. You got someone significantly more physically based than Sheldon Keefe was. Sheldon Keefe was fairly trying to make it more of an offensive game, whereas Craig Berube gets everyone involved on everything. And it's admittedly, yes, Ottawa is a little bit inexperienced, but part of Toronto's success so far is Craig Berube and his coaching ideologies with the Leafs.
Yeah. No, and I certainly agree. And I think I don't know if you saw that clip after the Leafs scored first yesterday, and Mark Savard, the assistant coach for the Leafs, did a big fist pump, and he was standing up on the bench, and Berube kind of tapped him and told him, like, hey, calm down.
Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah. So I think you kind of see that shift in mindset there as well. Like, the end goal isn't to win this game. It's to win the 40-pound trophy at the end of the playoffs. And moving on now to some other series in the Eastern Conference. Carolina just looks in the driver's seat right now to win that series, up 2-0 against the New Jersey Devils. And I don't know if this is a hot take or not. If I had to rank the teams in the playoffs right now in terms of who I think has the best chance at winning the cup and who I think has the worst chance at winning the cup, I truly think that I'd have the Devils last right now.
You'd have the Devils last.
Like, I'd have them below Montreal even.
That's surprising.
The reason why I say that is I just don't see them going far, not only without Jack Hughes, but now, Alex, they've got a depleted blue line, injuries to Jonas Siegenthaler, Luke Hughes, and Brendan Dillon. Those are very important players on that blue line. So I just don't see them, and especially after the first 2 games of this series against the Canes, and the Canes have dominated the Devils in the past in the playoffs, winning in 5 in 2023 as well. I just don't see this going well for New Jersey.
I would put them on par with Montreal, just because, yes, Montreal is more well-rounded, but their skill level is nowhere near, in my opinion, anything remotely resembling a Stanley Cup caliber team. But yeah, New Jersey with the holes now drastic on defense.
Yeah.
And you got Markstrom in your own end, and he can do a lot. He was a former Vezina finalist. He didn't win it, but he was a finalist. So he's got that in him, but he can only do so much. My prediction was Canes in 5 because I thought New Jersey would at least try and steal 1. It might be a sweep. It might be a sweep.
I'm thinking it's going to be a sweep at this point too. Mm-hmm. I had the Devils getting 1. I didn't actually predict any sweeps in the first round. I know that there's going to be a sweep, like it happens, but I just didn't. I'm not. I always say that the only non-coward pick is picking a team in 4. Because if it's 5, then you're like, well, I'm not bold enough to go for the sweep. If it's 6, well, I think it'll be a close series, but not go 7. And if it's 7, then you can use the excuse that, it could have gone either way.
Yeah, you have to really know if a series is going to be a sweep. Like last year with the Rangers and Caps, where the Rangers were sweeping the Caps.
Yeah,
I knew that was going to be a sweep. But with New Jersey and Carolina, at least before the series started, I didn't think Carolina would sweep, but it's looking like with the holes on defense now, it's looking like they might.
Yeah. Logan Stankoven in game 1 was great.
My God, what a pickup.
Yeah. He's been a fantastic pickup in that trade for Rantanen. It's been a great pickup for the Hurricanes. And my criticism of Carolina in the past has always been that they haven't had that elite scorer. I'm not sure if Logan Stankoven's going to be the answer to that problem this season. I think he could be in the future, though.
Yeah, they've had a bit of goaltending issues as well. Freddie has always been injured. As a Freddie Anderson fantasy holder, I can tell you he's always been injured. But you have Peter Kochetkov backing him up, and he's not horrible, but he's definitely not Stanley Cup caliber. But yeah, to your point, definitely some scoring or lack of scoring depth there. And with Stankoven, definitely getting that a little bit better.
Yeah. As well, Jordan Martinook, I don't know if you saw, Alex, he has been on a tear against the New Jersey Devils in the playoffs over the past couple series that they've played against the Devils. 13 points in 7 career playoff games against the Devils. I don't know what it is about Jordan Martinook, but I guess he shows up when they're playing the Devils in the playoffs.
He's got a hard nose. He knows the playoff style you have to play. When I think of someone who has that scoring touch, but it also might legitimately run you over, Jordan Martinook for the Canes is definitely one of the people on that list there.
Yeah. No, definitely, for sure. A great depth piece for Carolina as well, which is what you need to go far in the playoffs. And speaking of going far in the playoffs here, the Washington Capitals, they're going to be looking to go far after finishing first in the Eastern Conference during the regular season. They're up 1-0 against the Montreal Canadiens, who we touched on a little bit here earlier on in the show. And I think that no matter what in this series against the Capitals, no matter what happens, I think this season can only be looked at as an absolute overwhelming win for the Montreal Canadiens compared to the expectations for them at the start of the season. I was expecting Montreal to be in the basement, and it was looking that way in November. If you can remember, Alex, they had a terrible start to the season, but they picked it up as the season went on, ended this season on a tear as well. And I think it's an absolute win for this Habs team, no matter what happens in this series. Game 1 was a great game as well. Montreal was able to come back and tie that thing up. But I think it's a learning lesson for the Habs in overtime there as they leave Alex Ovechkin all alone out front. You don't want to do that. And the greatest goal scorer of all time, he ends up putting in his first ever playoff overtime winner to seal Game 1 for the Caps.
Which is flooring.
Yeah.
He's been in the NHL since 2007.
And the Caps have been a perennial playoff team. I know that they haven't had too many deep runs, but like they've won some series and they've made the playoffs consistently since Ovechkin's been there.
There are a lot of teams in the East that can kind of go home happy regardless of how they end up. In comparison to last year, Montreal is one of them. Ottawa, I think, is one of them. And Washington, we just talked about, is one of them as well. So it sucks when you're looking at Ottawa and Montreal because you know that everyone in both those locker rooms wants to see how far they can get. And especially in Ottawa with Brady, with his brother having just won the Stanley Cup, you know Brady wants to get one for himself. But you can't take anything away from them. They were bottom area of the Atlantic last year. So being able to scrape together a couple playoff appearances for both Ottawa and Montreal here is nothing to scoff at. They should go home not necessarily happy, but with a little bit of house money at least.
Yeah.
And honestly, as we get kind of deeper in the playoffs, Montreal might be a team that I forget made the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'll be sitting here in June thinking, who did Washington face in the first round?
There's a kind of couple of those teams every year. Washington was that team last year.
Washington was that team last year. Yeah. So it's nice to see them turn around. Honestly, Jack Adams probably going to Spencer Carberry.
Yeah.
But yeah, no one in Montreal should kind of hang their head. They fought to get to where they are. Hopefully St. Louis gets them progressing a bit more. It's a tough division, the Atlantic. Yeah. You have the top three, Tampa, Florida, and Toronto, and then it's just a dogfight. Boston fell off a cliff, so maybe Montreal kind of capitalize on some quick growth here with Ottawa as well.
Yeah, I certainly agree there. As well, you've got Buffalo and Detroit who been on the outside looking in. Well, Buffalo's been on the outside looking in for the past 14 years, but the last couple of seasons, they've at least at the start of the season had hopes of making the playoffs. You have to think that'll be the thing next season. It's going to be an ultra competitive division next season, but for this season, Alex, you mentioned Washington and how they've outperformed expectations, but like I mentioned, they did win the Eastern Conference in the regular season. So what are your expectations for them in these playoffs? It looks like they could have a little bit of an easier path going up against the winner of the Canes and Devils series, but we shall see. So what are your expectations? And do you think they'll still be disappointed if they don't make it, say, past the second round?
I think the second round is going to be a dogfight between, let's say, Washington and Carolina.
Yeah.
I have no reason to believe it's going to be anything else, because both teams are going into the second round fresh as a daisy. Carolina hasn't really had any fight that they've had to endure against New Jersey, and same thing with Washington and Montreal. For expectations, I would probably, both teams are at least hoping for a conference final. Yeah. I think if you are Washington, much like Montreal, if you get to the conference final, that's house money, especially where you were last year. With Rod Brindamore and the Hurricanes, they have been in and around this area for years now.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bit more of a chip on Carolina's shoulder, especially because they haven't won a cup since 2006 against the Oilers. So which Brindamore was a part of. But I think if you're one of the players, if you're Ovechkin, you just set the all-time goals record, and you want to complement that with Stanley Cup. But if you're pretty level-headed about the cap recently, I think conference final and above is house money. I think that is the bare minimum that you look for.
I agree with that assessment there, Alex. And as we shift over to the West here, we'll start off by talking about what I think was the best game of the playoffs so far early on, and that was the jersey you're wearing, the LA Kings, going up against. Oh, that's such an awesome jersey.
2020 Stadium Series.
Yeah, they beat the Oilers in Game 1, 6-5 in regulation. That was an absolutely epic game. I was listening to it on the radio driving home from Las Vegas. And I will say as well, I don't know if you guys listen to too many games on the radio. I don't do it too often, but
Flames games,
when I
really,
do,
that's about it.
Yeah, it's intense. Like they'll just say shot, and you don't know if it's like a shot from the boards that has no chance of going in, or if it's a one-timer at the side of the crease. You think like every shot, you're like holding your breath.
Oh, it might be.
It's gonna go in. Yeah. But no, I thought it was, at least from when I was listening, and then it's game of the year, game of the playoffs so far, as the Kings were up 4-0 in that game, then 5-2 in the third period. The Oilers would come back and tie it, score 2 goals with the extra attacker, but it would not go to overtime. Phil Deneau would score for the LA Kings. And the big story coming out of this game seems to be the play of Stuart Skinner. And Alex, it looks like the Oilers are going back to Skinner tonight in Game 2. What are your thoughts on it?
If I remember correctly, this is how last year went too. I seem to remember there were a bunch of questions around Skinner being a playoff goalie at the start of the series, and then they obviously beat the Kings last year, and then wandered their way into a finals appearance. So if I'm Edmonton, I wouldn't worry too much, because this is more or less who Stuart Skinner is. He's never been that consistent mainstay. He's always been kind of up and down. But then when the lights are brightest, he always seems to just kind of like find that extra gear, as it were. That being said, he's been hit twice this season. Yeah. He was injured for a bit there, and I think it was a concussion issue, unless I'm mistaken. And it was said before that the Kings are one of the best teams at home. And Game 2, I imagine, is probably gonna go LA's way again. Just because it does take Stuart Skinner a bit longer to try and find his legs. I know I'm sitting here in Calgary saying, yeah, I had the Oilers going out in the first round because I had the Kings finally after the 4th attempt going over the Oilers, but it's not, to me, it's not about Stuart Skinner for me, and it's about Evan Bouchard.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair assessment too.
Oh my God. The amount of pizzas that he is serving up, he could work in any Papa John's in the nation, in the world. Oh my. It's been a learning storyline through this whole season that he's definitely more offensive than he is defensive, and his defensive work is offensive. But Stuart Skinner is not my worry, because that's who he's always been. Evan Bouchard is more my issue, because he's a top line defenseman and he's not playing like it. That's where my issue. If I'm an Oilers fan, that's where my issue is.
I think my issue's with management there, because you look at the deadline here, Al. You look at the trade deadline that the Oilers had. Goaltending was the talk there, and going into the deadline for the Oilers. And I know that you say that Skinner's been up and down. That Stars series last year, he was absolutely spectacular for the Edmonton Oilers. But there was questions in those playoffs, as you said. He wasn't great in the Canucks series. Ended up actually, I believe that they started Pickard a couple of games in that series. It was at least one that they played Pickard in.
Yeah.
And I think that the Oilers, if they want to solidify themselves as a contender, you need a more consistent goalie, because you don't know what you're going to get out of Stuart Skinner at this point. You don't know if he's going to be the worst goalie in the playoffs, and you don't know if he's going to perform as the best goalie. I don't think John Gibson was the answer. I know his name had come up, but I think the Oilers should have made another deal. And then you talk about the defense. Do you remember the trade that the Oilers made at the deadline? The big one, the Jake Wallman trade?
Yeah.
So they go out and get Jake Wallman. And there was talk about the Oilers needing to fix their defense, but the issue was that they didn't need another offensive defenseman. They needed a guy that's more stay-at-home and that can play a more defensively responsible role on that blue line. And I don't think you got that with Jake Wallman.
No, I consider Jake Wallman to be more of an offensive defenseman. Pretty much Bouchard, but a little bit slower and a little bit more defensively capable.
Yeah.
I was one of those people that was saying, go get John Gibson.
Yeah.
Because he deserves a cup at this point. He's been with the Ducks the entire time and he's been getting nothing.
Yeah.
One of the best goalies I would maintain in the NHL. It's just a shame that he's behind the Ducks lineup. So I was very surprised that they didn't come out of the trade deadline with John Gibson. I don't know his contract. Maybe he has a no trade and Edmonton might be on there. Because I imagine taxes and all that. But I see where you're coming from with management, though, is because they have routinely not seen what the problem was.
Yeah.
And that's going back since the Neil Yakupov draft, where they've been consistently going, okay, we need a forward, we need a forward, we need a forward. No, you need one of everything. And they haven't really expanded past, or they haven't really plugged the main hole in their ship. They've plugged the little minor ones, but they've routinely kind of missed the ones they should fix.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I agree as well. Unfortunately, the way things work now, Edmonton will probably win 4 straight and make us both look like fools. That's the way
that's true.
But I guess we'll move on to the other series in the Pacific. My Vegas Golden Knights, they're tied 1-1 right now with the Minnesota Wild after 2 games. Knights, I think game 1 was, what people were expecting in this series. I think that the Wild are a better team than people give them credit for. Like, they started off the season very well when they were fully healthy. Believe that by a certain point in the season that they were competing with, like at one point they were competing with the Winnipeg Jets for first place in the Central at one point early on in the season. But you get the injuries to Kaprizov and Eriksson struggled a little bit down the stretch and then turned it on a bit once those two came back as well. And you've really seen it in this series as well. Those two have had a big impact. Kirill Kaprizov's been absolutely fantastic. I don't know, Alex, if you saw that pass to Matt Boldy on the opening goal yesterday. You're nodding your head. And I wanted to say that Joel Eriksson as well. You see him on that line with Boldy and Kaprizov. And so far, the Golden Knights top line hasn't done a whole lot in this series. And I think it's because of that top line of the Wild, specifically Eriksson, who's been very effective in shutting down the Golden Knights top players in Jack Eichel and Mark Stone.
Yeah, people are discounting the Wild because they finished in a wildcard spot, but that's largely because they were injured with Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson having missed some time there. That series was really tough for me to predict because you have Vegas who are, to put it simply, battle tested, and then you have Minnesota who have always been the team, especially since the Boudreau days, that have just been kind of 1, maybe 2, but typically 1.
Yeah.
But you have Gustafsson in the back there. You have unreal scoring up at the front.
They've got a good blue line too, the Wild.
Yeah, they have Faber is obviously the first name that comes to mind with the Wild as well. I wouldn't worry too much if you're Vegas.
I don't think it's time to worry yet. And I said I was getting text messages from some buddies yesterday. Oh, the Knights are getting killed right now. And I was like, this is the ass kicking that they need.
Yeah.
But no, I think that I think going into game 2 after they won game 1 maybe took Minnesota a little lightly and then got punched in the mouth, even though Nick Hague was the one that did the punching late in the contest. But the Golden Knights did get punched in the mouth in that game early on. And Aiden Hill was fantastic early on in that game. And it really seemed like the Golden Knights came out firing. Like those first 5 minutes, they were in control. And then there was a 5-minute stretch where Minnesota took things, they took control of the game and they were pressing in the Golden Knights offensive end. And eventually it did result in a goal for the Minnesota Wild. And from then the floodgates opened and I think for the Golden Knights, the biggest thing is they need to. I think that I don't know. I think they need to shut down. Maybe not necessarily the focus isn't going to be on Kaprizov and Boldy. They need to be worried about shutting down the depth of the Minnesota Wild, because the depth of the Wild isn't great right now, but they were getting goals yesterday. And I think if you shut them down, then they're going to be relying on Boldy and Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek to get all their offense. And you can't win a series that way.
You got two teams that have some really solid forward lineups. On Minnesota, obviously Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, Boldy. On Vegas, you have as a Hurdle and Barbashev fantasy holder this season, two unreal players. This to me is looking like a shootout.
Yeah.
Whoever gets the last shot on net kind of wins. So you have to really tighten up. And I at the start of the playoffs, I predicted Vegas. I'm not moving off that, but it might go 7.
I think it'll be a close series for sure.
The series not a write-off, not even remotely, especially with the 2 new additions that Minnesota just got back. It's not quite a burn it and like forget it game for Vegas because, as you said, they have to better watch Minnesota's depth, but go back, or at least you've been here before. Don't worry. Just keep playing your game and it should work out.
Yeah. No, I certainly agree with that assessment there. And then we move on to the series in the Central Division, starting with the Winnipeg Jets, who are up 2-0 against the St. Louis Blues. Alex, you questioned me on picking the Blues in that first round of the playoffs. So far, you're looking to be right on that one. My questions with the Jets lied with Connor Hellebuyck. Now, I know that seems crazy because he's a Hart Trophy candidate this season, absolutely the slam dunk Vezina winner. There's no debate there. But for me, he hasn't exactly proven himself in the past in the playoffs, specifically these last 2 playoff runs against good teams in the Golden Knights who went on to win the Cup. Hellebuyck was not good in that series. And then last year I actually picked the Jets to beat the Colorado Avalanche. We've talked about this a lot on the show, and the Colorado Avalanche had their way with Connor Hellebuyck in that series. I believe they had like at least 5 goals in each of those games that the Avalanche won in that series. So for me, that's where my questions lie. I'm not confident in playoff Hellebuyck. However, I am confident in playoff Jordan Binnington, especially after what he did at the Four Nations this past February. And I think it kind of lit a fire under Jordan Binnington. He was great since that Four Nations break for the St. Louis Blues, and the Blues as a team were able to make a push and end up making the Stanley Cup playoffs, winning 12 games in a row in March. So that's kind of the rationale for my Blues pick. But so far, Jets have looked great. Kyle Connor with game-winning goals in Game 1 and 2. And Mark Scheifele, he is a playoff performer at this point, and 5 points through the first 2 games of the series for the Jets.
I never really entertained the idea of St. Louis betting past Winnipeg here, because you can only do the out of the playoff picture and then storm to the playoffs and win a cup. Not frequent enough that I can remember 2 of them happening.
Yeah.
So I think the difference between Hellebuyck and Binnington for me is that Binnington's floor is a lot lower.
Yeah, that's fair.
The peak and valley between his skill or his performance is way, way, way bigger than Hellebuyck's is.
Yeah.
And you said Connor, Scheifele is also up there. Perfetti's doing well. Velarde. Yeah. I'm as much as I love Rob Thomas and the crew, it's not quite Winnipeg. And I knew one wildcard game was gonna be kind of this of like fairly even split, much like the Vegas and Minnesota one. But this Hellebuyck looked different to me. This Hellebuyck looked a lot different to me this season. I don't have them going to the Cup final. I think I have them losing to Colorado in the second round because I think that President's Trophy curse is a thing. Your team's just going to get gassed by the time the second round rolls around, unless you're something really special. But I think Hellebuyck and crew have more than enough to actually get past St. Louis here.
Yeah. I could see them getting past the Blues, but like you said, I don't see them getting past Colorado or even Dallas. I could maybe see Dallas, but Colorado, I don't think they're going to get past. Now we switch over to the other Central Division series. I just talked about them, Dallas and Colorado. Tied 1-1 after 2 games. And I think after game 1, a lot of people were expecting this series to maybe be a blowout. I predicted the Avs in 5 at the start of this series. And I love the depth of the Dallas Stars. I think they're the deepest team in the playoffs. It's the other areas, well, not in goal, but the defense that I have kind of an issue with coming into this series, especially with Miro Heiskanen hurt. And I thought they should have strengthened the blue line at the trade deadline, went out and got another defenseman. And now you've got Jason Robertson out as well. So I thought this was going to be a blowout for the Avs, and it certainly looked that way in game 1 as the Avs cruised to a 5-1 victory in that one. But game 2, a different story as Dallas would win in overtime to even up the series. Colin Blackwell with the OT winner for the Stars.
What is it about Dallas and Colorado in overtimes where Dallas seems to always win? I think Matt Duchene got the series winner last year. I think I said Avs in 6. And I thought that because you have Robertson out, you have Heiskanen out.
Yeah.
I think I'm missing another defenseman that they're also out as well. And Colorado added. They cut Rantanen loose, but Nietzsche's isn't nothing. I've loved Nietzsche's for years in Carolina. And admittedly, their goaltending isn't great.
I think it's good, but not great. But I think that for the Avs, you think back to that Stanley Cup run, they had good but not great goaltending with Darcy Kemper and Pavel Francouz.
And with the Toronto series, I mentioned, or we talked about the Berube's difference behind the bench rather than Keefe's. Another difference that can probably pump up a goalie's tires is if I make Nathan McKinnon mad, he might smash every single one of his sticks over my head. So probably not that. Because Darcy Kemper won a cup with the Avs and then has since kind of dropped like a stone.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a work ethic thing in Colorado. That's why I kind of have them going to the cup final and winning. But
they've
man,
also
I don't
got
know.
A very good blue line.
I don't know what it is about. Cale Makar. He got Devon Taves.
Gerard.
Noted Foreign Nations winners. But I don't know what it is about the Stars just seeming to find it in overtime every time against Colorado. Dallas's goaltending is a lot better, but your cannon, like your brick wall, can only be so strong against cannons that it just doesn't work.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna say Vancouver. Colorado's got some cannons, and that's a depleted blue line. I'm not worrying too much for Colorado here. As long as they can stay out of overtime, I think they should be okay.
Yeah. No, I certainly agree. And I love that analogy of the cannons and the brick wall. That was a good one there. I guess more news, the news in the NHL. I didn't really introduce that part of the segment, but got more news in the NHL today. I guess not in the NHL, but in the hockey world. The PWHL is expanding to Vancouver. Alex, I know you talk a bit about the PWHL on your show. How do you feel about this?
I commented on, I think it was the PWHL's post about this on Instagram. I commented, that's a funny way to spell Calgary. I'm bummed it's not here, man. I would have become a season ticket holder immediately. I'm probably gonna see if I can get out there for a few games there. I'm not changing my fandom. On the show, I said that I'm a Charge fan. I'm gonna ride or die until Calgary gets a team. But I love seeing them expanding. That is so amazing. I love seeing that. I didn't think it'd be Vancouver. I thought they would have expanded west kind of slowly. Go to Chicago.
Detroit.
Go to Detroit is another one. It's been said a lot that Pennsylvania might get a team. I know that's more Eastern, but still just rumors. I was not expecting Vancouver at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
But love to see it. More PWHL hockey. I'm just curious how they're going to do the expansion draft, if at all, or if it's just going to be kind of how the old NHL did it, or it's going to be an expansion draft and like some limited protections.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see. I think it'll be a great thing as well for the PWHL. And then another league that you talk a little bit on your show, the Coast to Coast podcast, is the WHL. And I want to give a shout out. I know I've seen Phil's video on the Coast to Coast page today, but I'm going to give a shout out to my team, the Lethbridge Hurricanes, going into Game 7 against the Calgary Hitmen. Terrell's nodding. He supports the Hurricanes as well, as does the rest of the Orston family. I would say it was the Yates family team, but my grandma and grandpa were Tigers fans. I guess the rest of us kind of rebelled or something. So,
yes.
But yeah, shout out Lethbridge Hurricanes. Hope they can pull it off, but it'll be an excellent game for sure.
I think Phil's going.
Yeah. I'm planning on going too. I was able to get cheap tickets for the game.
Not to kind of throw a monkey wrench into your program here, but did you see the Rangers extended jury?
They did? I didn't catch that.
It was there's an article on the Score, like pretty much at 3:00, saying that they extended jury here, multi-year extension. And not great. He was kind of at the center of the issues that New York had with Miller, and with that whole kind of Trouba thing as well. So to see them, I guess, ownership kind of fully co-signs on Drury. Not sure how that would look in the locker room, but just was curious if you saw that.
No, I hadn't caught that, so thanks for bringing that to my attention. I will say this about Chris Drury. I have mixed feelings on him. Obviously didn't go good this year, and he obviously didn't do a good job with the midseason roster adjustments. The one thing I will say about Drury is he has at least made an effort to make the team better in the past, whereas I think some general managers in the NHL tend to sit back and aren't as aggressive in making some moves, whereas I think Drury at least has proven that he's able to do that. But I think after this past season in New York, there needs to be changes, and there was. Peter Laviolette was fired. I guess those were some coaching changes as well. Laviolette out in New York. I don't know if that's going to be the answer or not. I think there's going to need to be some roster adjustments, but I don't know if you blow up the whole thing just yet. If you're the Rangers, you think back to before Tampa won those Stanley Cups. They missed the playoffs in 2017. The year before the Knights won the Cup, they missed the playoffs. So I don't think blowing it up and starting a rebuild right away is the answer for the New York Rangers. But I think they maybe need a little bit of patience here. But there's definitely, I think, going into next season, there will be some jobs on the line.
You have the pieces there. You have all the pieces there.
Yeah.
Fox had an underwhelming season. Hopefully he bounces back a bit. Shesterkin, same thing. There's no reason to panic here. It's just locker room culture, I think. Before Laviolette, it was David Quinn. Before that, I think it was
Gerard Gallant.
It
was in between those two, yeah.
And those are guys that are really kind of, they're not soft coaches. They're coaches that would absolutely yell at you. And maybe the Rangers are just tired of getting yelled at. Maybe you need a fun coach just to kind of like remind them, hey, hockey's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the issue. Dan Bylsma doesn't read to me like that kind of guy. But maybe he can turn around the Rangers. I guess we'll have to kind of wait and see. But there's no reason for panic in New York at all. I don't think so.
Yeah. As for the other two coaching fires this past week, Greg Cronin in Anaheim has been
finally.
Yeah, I was going to say that was long overdue.
Yeah.
He didn't do a great job there with the Ducks. And I think the one player that you've seen him have the biggest effect on was Trevor Zegras, who has lit the world on fire those first 2 seasons, was even an NHL cover athlete on the NHL 23 video game, I believe it was. But these past 2 years has struggled under Cronin. I think it's long overdue. The other one you mentioned, Dan Bylsma, out in Seattle. And I think the Kraken are maybe being too aggressive here.
Okay.
I think they're being too aggressive. I think they should have had some patience. I think they should have given Bylsma another year. I don't know. Like, I don't think that the Kraken at the start of the season, like, I think I had them in the playoffs, but it was like as a wild card too. It wasn't exactly like they're solidly in. They were kind of on that bubble. And it's not like they absolutely tanked this year. They weren't, don't get me wrong, they weren't near the playoffs, but they also weren't anywhere near the bottom of the Pacific either. So I feel like they should have given him another year. The other part of that too that I wonder about, Alex, is Jessica Campbell was promoted from the AHL to the NHL with Bylsma. I wonder what happens with her future with the Kraken, if she remains with the team if a new coach comes in, or if she also goes with Bylsma if he goes and coaches somewhere else. Because she was a huge story this past season. Sorry to interrupt there.
No worries.
She was a huge story. Sorry?
I don't have an answer yet, so go ahead.
Okay. She was a huge story in the NHL this past year, and was a great thing to see her coaching in the NHL.
The Kraken to me are such a mystery because they've only had 2 coaches. Dave Haxtell kind of fell flat on his face. And then Dan Bylsma. I don't know the extent of history between Bylsma and Campbell. If I'm Campbell, I would probably stick around.
Yeah.
Just because at some point you do want to try and make the jump from assistant coach to head, assuming that's what she wants to do. But I don't. I would imagine Campbell might want to be a head coach.
Yeah.
Obviously, he might want to take a couple more years, but to my knowledge, she loves it in Seattle. So I think that's why she's going to stay. And then whenever the next coach gets released, I think that's Campbell's time to get called up. So a few more years as an assistant just to kind of make sure that she is comfortable. And then I see no reason why she would want to jump up as a head coach in Seattle after.
Yeah, I could see that as well. I don't know where Will went just now, but hopefully he comes back.
Yeah.
I guess as well, we'll move on here to talk about WWE. And hey, there he is.
There's Will.
AirPods died. Lost all the sound, so I had to...
I was gonna ask, I guess, Terrell and Will before we move on here. Do you guys have any thoughts on the NHL playoffs so far? Is there any series that you've been tapped into?
You go first, Will.
Yeah, I watched the Oilers game the other day after the basketball games ended, but so I jumped the gun a little bit on the Oilers comeback. I was texting my grandpa because he's a big Oilers fan. I'm like, they cut it to 1, like down 1. And I'm like, text him, dream's not dead yet. And then McDavid scores, and I just said wow in all caps, and then it was over right after that. I didn't even get a text back till the next day. So
okay, cool. You offset my text because I text my dad and brother saying the Kings are up 4-0.
Yeah,
and then my brother said he's going to yell at me.
Yeah, I've learned I can't shoot any text mid game.
No, put the phone away.
Yeah.
I've been too dialed in on baseball, as you can see, Blue Jays fan, and then a lot of the NBA playoffs. And then by the time I'm getting around to the NHL, I have to go to sleep because I'm getting up bright and early the next day. So I haven't been able to catch very much of it, no.
Okay. I guess then now we'll move on to talk WWE. And I was at Wrestlemania this past week, had a ton of fun in Las Vegas. And I showed you guys before the show, but I'll show the viewers. Got a Wrestlemania Golden Knights jersey.
Stand up, Clayton. You're not even
there
showing
it is. There it is. Yeah. Combined one of my favorite jerseys I have because it combines my two favorite things, the Golden Knights and wrestling. I had a ton of fun there. It was a great weekend in Las Vegas for Wrestlemania. I met American Made. For those of you that don't know, they're like a faction in WWE. I met the Creed brothers and Ivy Nile. They were all very nice, so it was pretty cool to meet them. And I think a lot to talk about coming out of this WrestleMania. Some memorable moments for sure. The big one being we got the 17th world title from John Cena. And Alex, I thought it was the right move for Cena to win. I enjoyed the match, and I think part of it as well was the atmosphere in the stadium for that match was absolutely incredible. Part of it too was kind of reminded me, I'm not going to say that it was, but like you've probably seen the Hogan and Rock match from 18, right?
Yeah.
So you have the heel in John Cena who's getting cheered by the fans because they grew up cheering for John Cena. Yeah. And you have Cody Rhodes who was getting booed. I was cheering for Cody. That's one of my favorites. So I was trying to make sure he didn't get booed, but I did a bad job of doing it. The rest of the stadium was booing him and cheering for Cena. So I thought the atmosphere was incredible. I thought the match itself was good. Of course, the big talking point coming out of WrestleMania is that there was no Rock appearance.
No Rock, yeah.
I think, though, I don't know if you can necessarily. I think the only one to blame for that is The Rock himself.
Yeah, I was cheering for Cena just because I love this. I love heel Cena. I've been waiting for that for years, so I think it's more just cheering that. But I don't know why The Rock didn't show up. I find it honestly kind of surprising that he didn't, because he was a fairly integral part in the heel turn.
Yeah.
So I thought he would have at least like music and stand at the top of the ramp. Nothing.
Yeah.
No appearance whatsoever. I don't know. Maybe it's for something more long term. I see we're also going to see another Cena Orton rivalry. Oh boy, we haven't seen any of those yet.
No,
but I was overall fairly happy with the show.
Yeah,
but I was just happy to have Cena get 17. Maybe they'll make a bigger thing out of it, but probably not because he's a heel. But I thought, like, if he did it as a face, then you have like Ric Flair there. You have just everyone. Doesn't matter. Just an Ovechkin-esque ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah, enjoyed the show. And can't wait for Cena Orton 5,458.
Yeah. I also liked at the end when they cut the music and it's him just walking out with the title and the crowd's cheering, "Thank you, Cena," and they've got the big 17 up on the Tron. I thought that was incredible. I thought it was absolutely I liked the match itself, and I liked the ending. I know I've seen some people that didn't like it. I liked the ending, and I've seen a lot of people saying, well, why is Travis Scott costing Cody the title? He's like 5'9" or something. Here's where I say, well, then the same people they're saying that will like say that it makes sense for Jimmy Hart to cost someone a title, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but Jimmy Hart's at least like paid by WWE.
But I think that's part of the storyline is that John Cena, he has these connections, that he's in the movie industry. He's out there in the mainstream. He has this connection in Travis Scott. And it wasn't like Travis Scott went out there and beat up Cody Rhodes. He was the one that took the crossroads. And I like the ending as well. And I think it made sense from a storyline standpoint because you've got Cody Rhodes, who's the good guy. He morally does not want to hit Cena with the title, but you have Cena, who knows that the right thing to do to win this match is to use those heel tactics, low blows Cody Rhodes, then hits him with the belt. I think it made a lot of sense.
Yeah. The whole Travis Scott thing to me seems a bit David Priest, Bad Bunny. Like, oh, you're here now? Sure. Okay. But it's I've loved this Heena's heel turn so much.
Yeah.
This has been so awesome to see. Just him tossing the whole hustle, loyalty, respect, never give up thing out the window. Love it. Love to see it.
The promos have been excellent. I've really enjoyed it. Will, I know you've probably got some thoughts. Did you watch it the other night?
Yeah, I watched Sunday. Yeah, I was just wondering, like, obviously I'm not tapped into the WWE like you are, but like everybody knows who John Cena is and kind of who he is as a wrestler and who he's become as like a pop culture figure too. Does it really work, Cena being a heel? And especially like listening to the crowd, everybody cheered for him. Like, aren't you supposed to hate the heel?
So it's not him being a heel isn't for kind of casual people who know him from Bumblebee. It's for people who saw him in the early 2000s, who have been waiting for this since kind of 2010 area, Wrestlemania 27. He was supposed to turn heel on The Rock, or after he lost to The Rock, and he didn't. They got real close to that. He didn't end up turning heel. But the cheering is because this is WWE listening to their fans. So something that, like, just because WWE says like heel and face doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the way the fans are going to go. A la Roman Reigns 2015, where everyone wanted to boycott WWE Network because everyone hated this fully unironic pushing of who is this guy? He doesn't even know how to talk.
And then at the back end of that, Roman's getting cheered as a heel.
Yeah. It's more like, because there's this weird disconnect between the kind of kayfabe and like WWE lore, and then we've been waiting for this for a while. Finally, yay. Or vice versa, however you want to look at it. So Cena being heel, what a fun interview I bet he would be. Just watching him like give like various talks or whatever, he just seemed like such a guy that I could just spend a full day talking to, and still not even be close to being done. But I think I'm curious if this is how he wanted to do it, because he said he wanted to turn heel. I think it was on a podcast a little bit ago saying, I think it was on Logan Paul's podcast saying like how close it was to a heel turn and how it didn't end up working out.
I think if Cena didn't want to, he wouldn't have.
No,
because it's his last run. I think he has a lot of power too. Not like, I guess, a status, like an exact power, but like they're going to respect what he wants to do for his final run kind of thing.
Yeah. And rightfully so.
Yeah. The other main event from Mania, night one, cinema. That was
absolute cinema.
Yeah, that was absolutely incredible. Oh man, I was going out. I almost lost my voice during that match. It was absolutely incredible. And I think right from the beginning, like the entrances were all amazing. CM Punk with Living Color. I seen Living Color the night before. They were down on Fremont Street, and literally, as soon as they played Cult of Personality, it was funny. I took a video and sent it to my brother, and there's like so many phones in front of me, and my brother sends back. He's like, "No phones, just people enjoying the moment." But no, that second night, his entrance with the video package right before, and then Living Color playing him to the ring, that was amazing. And then the match itself, like there were so many times you knew that at some point in the match, Paul Heyman's going to decide who he wants to side with.
Yeah.
But I think what was to say that was the match was so spectacular was you forget about it during the match because you think the ending is going to be when Punk hits Rollins with the GTS, then gets hit with the spear, and then there's the curb stomp. Like that's what you think the ending is going to be in the moment. Like if you get what I'm saying here, that you kind of thought that the Heyman thing was going to be the ending, but during the match itself, you're like, oh, is this the end here? It was absolutely incredible.
My heart breaks for CM Punk, honestly, because he was jobbed out of his first run at WWE. He wanted that main event appearance, and he did get it. It's just a shame that I really wanted him to finish his story, as it were. But Heyman turning heel, joining force with Seth Rollins, then you have Braun Breaker. I think it was a Raw after Mania.
Yeah.
Joining them as well, which looks unstoppable.
Yeah.
But Smart does break for CM Punk a bit, but if he did win, I don't know where they'd go. So
yeah,
it's all about like going further. Like you can't do it for just like, oh, it was cool, a la Zack Ryder, WrestleMania 32 for the Intercontinental Championship. But my heart breaks for CM Punk. This is the way it should have gone.
yeah. No, I agree as well. And I think that faction looks very intriguing going forward. Who else they're going to add to the faction? But I was going to just mention, I guess, some more highlights from the show. The 2 mid-card title matches were absolutely incredible. You had the one with Jacob Fatu and LA Knight. That false finish where he hits the backflip and Knight catches him with the BFT. That was incredible. And then the Fatal 4-Way where Dom Mysterio won the Intercontinental title. Will, I know you called him a fraud. You were happy with that.
Should have been Breaker.
Yeah. See, I wanted Braun Breaker as well, but at the same time, I also kind of want to see him maybe chase a world title too. I think that'd be...
What a cheer for Dom.
Huh?
What a cheer for Dom.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
They were cheering. The people next to me were from San Diego, so they were cheering for him because of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, by the end, I think it was one of those things where it's like by the end, he kind of earned the respect of the crowd sort of thing. And it was... It was cool to see him have that moment at the end where then he runs back into the ring and poses with the championship one more time. That was really cool. And then the other one that I was happy to see, there was a lot of talk going in, but I almost teared up when Jey Uso won the title and then hugged Jimmy after. I think that was the moment itself was cool. And I think that they did the right thing putting that at the start of the show, where it's like you have all the energy of the crowd right at the start and they're fully behind Jey Uso. Yeah. Whereas I don't know if it would have maybe been the same in the middle of the show, but yeah.
No, yeah. You start the night off kind of heartwarming.
Yeah.
I don't know where else he would have put that.
No.
It's not quite main event. So start.
Yeah. Non-main event Jey Uso. But unless you guys have any final thoughts on WrestleMania. No.
Paul Heyman on Pat McAfee show.
Incredible.
That was awesome.
What happened on Pat McAfee show?
A lot happened on the Pat McAfee show.
Oh, boy.
Heyman with no filter. I'll recommend you go search it up, Alex. There was a lot of things that we maybe can't say on here. But I know, Alex, before you head off here as well, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about Coast to Coast a little bit and shout out the social media channels for the Coast to Coast podcast.
Yeah, let me pull them all up here because it's really hard to keep track of. So we only talk hockey on Coast to Coast. It's myself, Phil Tremblay, Merrick Robinson, and Casey Freeman, who went back home to BC. Is unfortunately not joining the show for the summer, but she'll be back in September. And we cover the WHL, NHL, and PW as well. And we're also next year, we're going to start covering a bit more kind of local stuff. So we're going to be talking about the AHL with the Wranglers. We're going to be talking about a little bit of AJ stuff probably as well. So we're just kind of expanding there. But if you did want to hit us up on our socials, YouTube is right there, pod_C2C, Instagram at C2C.pod, Twitter at C2C_pod, on TikTok at coast2coast.podcast. And then we're also on Spotify as well, creators.spotify.com/pod/show/C2C-pod. That is a lot to remember.
Well, thank you very much for joining today, Alex. We really appreciated having you on and appreciated your insight during the NHL and wrestling segments.
Thanks for the invite. I was super stoked to actually get invited here. This was awesome. Love to be on here with you fellas.
All righty. Maybe we'll try and get you on again here before the playoffs are over. Thank you for joining.
Happy to. See you guys.
Thank you.
All righty. Terrell, let's talk some MLB.
Let's do it, man. I don't know if we want to start negative or if we want to start positive. It's pretty much whether we're talking about the rest of the league or whether we're talking about the Toronto Blue Jays.
Let's start with the Blue Jays.
Let's do it. I was going to say, Clayton, I know you've been watching them. So
yeah, I was a little tapped out during my vacation, or not tapped out, tuned out during my vacation.
Good time to stop watching them, I will say that.
Yeah. I will say, though, I thought the end of that Braves series was good. It looked really good for the Jays. Chris Bassett turned in a fantastic performance at the end of that series against the Braves. Miles Straw as well. His cult is growing within the Blue Jays fan base, I think. Been a great addition for them this year. But there have been some negatives as well with the Jays, as you alluded to, Taro.
Yeah, there definitely have been. Some is maybe an understatement, but we don't want to get too down on them here. They were above 500, and for a moment they were leading the American League East. That is no longer the case. They're now sitting directly at 12-12. Yeah, end of the Seattle series, horrific. Just about as bad as it could possibly be. That extra innings game, Tellez hitting the grand slam, that was like all of the air. It's just like, okay, we suck still. That's awesome. And then we've continued that momentum in the AL West, playing the Houston Astros, and we've lost the first game of that series too. So has not been a great stretch of games for the Toronto Blue Jays. That first game against the Astros was pretty exciting because Gausman was fantastic through the first four, and then just got blown up in the fifth, gave up 4 runs, and then that was pretty much the end of the game there. But like you mentioned, Bassett's been fantastic. He's been about as good as anyone could possibly be. I want to say he's still leading the league in ERA. I just kind of want to double check that so I'm not lying to people.
He's not leading the league in ERA.
No longer. He is now, yeah, you're right. He used to be below. He was sub 1. Now he's at a 1.88. But regardless, he's been fantastic. Yeah, like you said, that performance against the Braves was unreal. So shout out Bassett for that one. And for the most part,
the Jays had 19 strikeouts in that game too.
It was a franchise record, I believe. So yeah, they were fantastic. Like you said, pitching's been great. That has not been the issue with this team for the most part. The biggest issue has been the distinct lack of power that the Toronto Blue Jays have. And I harped on it at the start of the year because it was an issue then, even when they were winning games. And it obviously has become more of an issue as they have stopped winning games. I don't want to throw too many numbers out there, but when you are amongst teams like the Chicago White Sox, the Rockies, the Pirates, in terms of team OPS, that is not very good. When you are second to last in the entirety of baseball in home runs, only in front of the Kansas City Royals, who have 12, and you have 13, not very good. When you are seventh last in slugging percentage, again, clumped with all those kind of bottom of the barrel offensive teams, not very good. It's just been disappointing. I do think if there's one thing that can turn around in terms of power for the Toronto Blue Jays, Vlad is going to get it together. Like, it's just going to happen. He, compared to his 2021 season, which obviously was the best year of his career, ground ball rate is down. Exit velo is very similar. He's at 93.8. He was at 95.1 that year, and his max exit velo is actually the highest it's ever been in his entire career. The launch angle is still a little lower than you'd probably like it to be, and then his expected stats are fantastic. So I do think that is one thing that will definitely turn around with the powers that Vlad will get it together. And then also Santander has historically been a very slow hitter to start the year. I want to say in the last 3 seasons, he's hit 6 home runs through April. And then he obviously turns it up. Last year he finished with 44, I believe. So those two I have no issue with. Obviously, Jimenez had to come down from that historic high he started off the season on. Springer's still been very good, but just isn't getting the home runs like you'd hope. But he's producing far better than I think at least I expected him to, and I would say just about anybody expected him to. I believe he's still top 20 in OPS. So there are some bright spots on the team, and I do think eventually it will turn around. But it's got to happen sooner rather than later. And obviously the big name that I haven't mentioned turning it around is Bo Bichette, who has not hit a home run. and I believe he has one of the longest streaks in the entirety of the MLB for time without a home run. It dates back to May of last year. Or no, it's within 320 something plate appearances. He's the only guy that hasn't a home run within that time frame. So it's been a very long time since Bo Bichette has hit a home run. So yeah, the issue with this team still is the power. It's going to continue to be the power until someone turns it up at least a little bit. Pitching, I think, has been about as good as you could expect it to be. They get blown up sometimes. Like I said, that extra innings loss to the Mariners, Jacob Barnes coming in to throw the pitch to grand slam against Rowdy Tellez. There's only so much you can do there, right? They were just at the back of their bullpen. It sucks, but that's just how it works. So all we can do is, cross your fingers, hope the power comes together, because if not, this will be a very disappointing team to watch for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Now, did you want to talk the rest of the MLB? Because I guess the team that's probably been doing the best, the San Diego Padres. And it certainly looks like Fernando Tatis Jr. is, you wrote down here, Terrell, all the way back this season.
He has been absurd to start the year. People were super down on him following, obviously, the whole PED scandal. And then he didn't have the greatest season in 2023. He kind of came back last year. But so far this year, he's been on an absolute tear. Over 1,000 OPS. He's hitting home runs. He's getting on base. He is one of the best defensive right fielders in baseball. He's just ridiculous, and he's so fun to watch. I love watching the Padres because I get to watch him play. And then beyond all of that, he is striking out far, far less than he has in previous years as well, and walking more. So really everything is just getting better for him as a player. I look forward to watching him continue to play. This Padres team has been ridiculous, like you said. Unfortunately, they are in the juggernaut that is the NL West with the Giants and the Dodgers and the D-backs. So kind of tough division for them to be in. But yeah, Fernando Tatis looking like an NL MVP candidate to start the year.
The guy who's looking like an AL MVP candidate, once again, Aaron Judge. Been batting fantastic this season for the Yankees.
I mean, it kind of feels like he decided he was done hitting home runs for a bit. Obviously, he still has 7 on the year, but it's been, I think, a couple of weeks since he's hit one. And he was like, whatever. I don't really feel like hitting home runs. I'll just lead the league in batting average instead. He's hitting .415 on the year, 1247 OPS, and a .513 on base. He's just as good as you could possibly get as an offensive player from the plate. And I feel like people are kind of underrating how ridiculous it is. It is legitimately like Barry Bonds levels of hitting at this point. I don't know. It's I hate, heaping praise on the Yankees players, but if there's one guy that you have to give it to, it is Aaron Judge, because he has just been ridiculous. Also, I didn't even realize 3 stolen bags on the year as well, so shout out to him. Only been caught stealing once. But yeah, he has been absurd. Obviously, the whole story with the Yankees start the year is the torpedo bats, and that has since tailed off because the offense has really cooled down, and the rest of the team has cooled off offensively as well. But yeah, him and Ben Rice, man, have been ridiculous to start the year. Ben Rice also with an OPS over 1,000, so shout out to him. Yeah, man, I mean, the Yankees are they're always as good as you expect them to be. They're kind of the inverse of the Blue Jays, where it's now the pitching might become the issue for them, which we kind of expected with the injury to Garrett Cole. But I do think that the offense can carry them, and if Aaron Judge is going to be performing like this the rest of the season, then yeah, that AL MVP is locked up, and it'd be hard to argue that he's not the best player in baseball.
And then the New York Mets won their 7th straight game today against the Philadelphia Phillies, swept the Phillies 3-0 in that series. And Terrell, the Mets are looking really good as well right now.
Like I said, have it down in the show document here. It's Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso. They're carrying that fraud Juan Soto. Who'd want to sign that guy, that bum? 2 home runs on the year, putting up George Springer numbers out there in New York. Yeah, I mean, this Mets team, again, just ridiculous. I said Judge is looking like a AL MVP candidate. Lindor is looking like the NL MVP candidate. He's been absolutely ridiculous. And then Pete Alonso has been arguably the second best hitter in all of baseball, only behind Aaron Judge. Will he keep it up? I don't know. Saying it is kind of ridiculous because, like we said, Judge is sitting at a 1247, and Pete Alonso's not even close at an 1121, but that's still obviously fantastic. Second best in the league. These Mets are fun to watch. And if Juan Soto can get it together even a little bit, they're going to be absolutely ridiculous, and they're going to just be a powerhouse out in the NL East.
What else did you want to touch on here in the MLB?
I realized that I didn't give, while I was talking about the Yankees, I didn't give any respect to Trent Grisham, known power hitter. His streak was hilarious. Started playing the show again this year, and he got the Player of the Month card, and I was like, oh, man, Trent Grisham. But, I mean, shout out to him. They needed extra production. The Yankees did, obviously, with the departure of Soto, and so far throughout the season, it's been him and Ben Rice have really picked up the slack there. He's just been fantastic to start the year. So, yeah, shout out to him. And then the last couple of guys, Tommy Edman, tied for second in the entirety of baseball in the home run race with 8, tied with Fernando Tatis Jr. and Mike Trout, which we obviously all expected. He's been ridiculous for the Dodgers. I think it's hilarious that he's pulled this power just kind of out of nowhere. He's been fantastic since he joined them. So he's been great. And then sticking with that home run race, Kyle Raleigh signed the extension with the Mariners this offseason and is now leading the entirety of baseball in home runs. Well, I should say tied with Tyler Soderstrom of the Las Vegas Athletics.
They're just the Athletics right now. They don't.
I know they don't have it. They don't have a location. I guess they're the Sacramento Athletics if we're giving them a specific geographical spot to be. But yeah, I mean, Raleigh has been as good as advertised. I think people were kind of underrating him because you look at the batting average and it's like sub 250, and people think, oh well, he sucks. Then he's fantastic. He's great defensively. Obviously, he hits for power. 946 OPS. He's been great to start the year. And then, yeah, like I said, Tyler Soderstrom. Looks like the A's are kind of starting to put something together there with him. Nick Kurtz is looking like he's going to come up and be a big addition to their lineup offensively. They're going to be a fun team to watch, which is kind of surprising given the expectations that they had coming into the year, for myself included, where I think I had them last in the AL West. It'd be kind of hard to argue that they wouldn't have been at the start of the year. But I don't know, man. The A's have been super fun to watch as well. Yeah, I mean, pretty much every team in baseball has been great to watch, except for the Toronto Blue Jays. Everyone's got something going for them, and then Toronto's kind of just, we're hanging out.
Do you have anything else you want to touch on in the MLB?
One last thing. Shout out Corbin Carroll. Never stopped believing in that guy, even after his down year last year, and he's just been ridiculous to start the season so far. He's super fun, like the true 5-tool guy. Hits for power, contact, speed. He does everything. And yeah, like I said, just caught up in that bloodbath that is the NL West. So fun division to watch, super fun player to watch. But yeah, I think that's probably it for the MLB.
So let's move on to the NFL. This is kind of our fun segment as well for this week because we're going to be doing a mock draft. Specifically, I think Will and Terrell will be doing mock drafts. I haven't been as tuned in for the draft. It is tomorrow, so that'll be entertaining. But Will and Terrell, I guess, go ahead.
So first of all, I wanted to say I was looking at the order of how this would work. Will, you have to go first because you'll pick Tennessee and then New England if we're going each 3 picks. And then I'll go second, and then Clayton, you'll go third, because that means you get to pick for Seattle at 18. If you want some advice on that pick, I can give it to you.
I was going to say I'm not tuned in. So.
Okay. If you want to, we could also just alternate. I was expecting all 3 of us to go, but we'll figure it out. It could be a team effort on Clayton's picks if we so desire.
I'll just tell you a position that I want. So
Okay.
You can probably figure it out. So.
All right. Missionary.
Or you know what? I'll give you 3 positions to choose from.
3.
Okay, so what?
I should have said that after what Will said.
You're getting extra options in there. One last thing with baseball. I was playing the show. ran into Dylan Head in the minor leagues. Saw him come up to bat, and I was like, oh boy, what a reference that is. I was looking for Wusuk Go. He wasn't on the roster, though. Tough to see.
Legendary Dylan Head. Okay, what's the order here, Terrell?
I think you go first, I'll go second, and then if we all kind of want to combine for the third pick, that's fine.
Okay, and so for context here, we are choosing players that we think these teams should pick and not who they're going to pick.
What we think they will pick, yeah.
Okay, what we think they will pick. Okay.
No, well, I mean we're doing what we think they should do, not what we think they will do.
Okay. Well, on the clock, 101, Tennessee Titans. This is tricky because do I think they go quarterback here in a weak class? Maybe not at the 101, but at the same time, I don't think they're going to rock with Will Levis going on in the future. So where they are, I think they do take Cam Ward, so I'm going to take Cam Ward.
I would have to agree. I was going to say if you win anyone else, that would have kind of thrown me off. So
Warren Moon, I think, also gave his blessing to, or said that he'd let Cam Ward wear one.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. Cam Ward, you guys probably saw this, but he was also playing Fortnite, saying that Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard are the best running backs in the league.
He was saying Calvin Ridley's the best receiver.
Yeah.
He was really laying it on thick. I can't lie.
And Treylon Burks was top 4 too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
maybe he believes that.
He could, you never know.
Yeah, it's like CJ Stroud reportedly failing that like quarterback IQ test a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it means nothing.
So that brings up the Cleveland Browns, and if I'm being totally honest, I think this is a pretty easy one for me to pick. I'm going Travis Hunter, and I'm not thinking twice about it. I'd say he's arguably the best player in the draft. It's him and Genty, and then I think Abdul Carter's a close third. But yeah, it's Travis Hunter. And that brings up the Giants again. I have notes for all the teams I was going at. The Giants, what are we thinking about them?
Are we doing a team pick here on the third?
I think we might as well.
Okay. Well, I'm going to, obviously, as a Patriots fan, try and throw a wrench in here and say Shedeur Sanders.
They should pick a punter, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
I think they go – can I give my input? I'm not as –
You go right ahead.
I could see them going Shedeur Sanders.
I could definitely – you go ahead.
Yeah, I could see them taking Shedeur here. I don't think that they have a long-term solution at quarterback right now. And, I think he's – but there's also been reports they could fall down draft boards, so I'm not entirely sure.
Here's my thing. Will, I'll let you to give your biased perspective at the end because you want a good player to fall to you here. I do think they have to go best player available. Their team is so far away from being competitive that a quarterback of Shedeur's level it's not going to fix that team. I think he's a first round level guy. I don't think he's a top 3 level guy. And I think that there are players here that in positions that they need that are definitely better than Shedeur is as a quarterback. The only thing I would say is that Joe Schoen and Dable are probably on their last legs as in that organization. So if they think they could throw a Hail Mary and be like, well, we need a couple of years to see if this quarterback pans out just to keep their jobs, that could be a thing. But all the other mocks I've seen, sorry, Will, I've seen them taking Abdul Carter at 3.
Yeah, and I was going to say the same thing as you with the job security. That's what Dan Orlovsky was saying on NFL Today, is it? Or NFL Countdown? I don't know.
NFL Live.
NFL Live.
Something or other.
Swing and a miss. Yeah, like when you're thinking about Dable and Schoen, maybe you want that job security, so you try and lock in the future of the Giants and Shedeur Sanders. But when you have a prospect like Abdul Carter, who everybody's saying him and Travis Hunter are like 1A, 1B in this draft, I think when you get this guy to fall to you at 3, you can't pass him up. So I think we go Abdul Carter here.
Sad for the Patriots.
Yeah.
But not the end of the world.
Not the end of the world at all. We're out of school now, just firing away resumes and reading mock drafts and Twitter. It's a scary world. But I think I've come to my senses, and I do think Will Campbell is the pick here. If we're not trading, Will Campbell is the pick here. And I know there's the argument for Armand Membu, but he's a career right tackle. And the thing with Will Campbell is, he's got short arms. People think maybe he's sliding to the guard position rather than playing left tackle. But whether he's a tackle or a guard, he will be the foundation of the left side of the line, which is a horrible, horrible need for the Patriots. And I think Will Campbell is the guy there.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
100%. I would say that, Membu is like maybe has a shot if they want to take a guy that has that kind of versatility, because really you could take anyone on the offensive line. But, Campbell I think is the best prospect there. One thing I will say, though, is about where you could start seeing Ted McMillan go off the board, because if they really think they need like a star receiver for May as well, I could see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think Campbell's the move.
There's been a lot of discourse about maybe the Patriots take Genty. As exciting as a player Ashton Genty is, I don't think that's the move. People relate it to Vrabel having Derrick Henry in Tennessee, but the lines were different. And all the comparisons have been the Giants taking Saquon. Look where that got them. Build anything around him. Lost every year. We're terrible teams, aside from that one playoff year. But I don't think Genty sets you up for the long term here. So we're going Will Campbell.
And then at pick 5, this is where I think Genty could really be the move. However, I was kind of between two guys here. I was thinking either Mason Graham or Genty, and just looking at, like, I really love Genty, but like you said with Saquon, if you draft a running back into if you draft a running back into a team where they don't have the offensive line to produce right away, you're setting them up for failure. And I do think that's what would end up happening with Genty in Jacksonville. So their next biggest need, and obviously just as big of a need, is the interior of that defensive line. And I think Mason Graham is easily the best prospect at that spot. So that is definitely who I'm picking at number 5 here.
Okay. Any thoughts on Armand Membu there? Because I think offensive line is maybe not as big of a need, but definitely a need for this Jacksonville team, especially to surround Trevor Lawrence with some strength up front.
It really was, like, I did consider it. I just think that Graham is just a much better prospect than Membu is. If they were like 50-50, I think you could make a much stronger argument. But like if it was Will Campbell had fallen to that point, I think I'd probably be going Will Campbell there. But I just think Mason Graham is the best player at a position that they need. To the next one. Clayton has vanished. We don't know where Clayton has gone. So we'll be winging it here. I'll let you start on this one because I have some opinions here.
Okay. Well, I think Ashton Genty is a very relevant player here at this pick. People have kind of been saying his range is 4 to 10, and they don't really think he's fallen below there. I don't think Raiders go defense here, and there's a lot of good defensive guys at the top of this draft. The only other player I could see them taking other than Genty is Membu.
Yep.
But I think the Raiders are really looking to tighten up their offensive star power this offseason. Obviously, they lost Devontae Adams last season, traded for Geno, got some quarterback stability. So I think they go Genty.
I 100% agree. I was going to say again, the only other guy I would consider, well, not the only other guy. One guy I would consider is Membu here. And then I've seen a lot of hype around Kelvin Banks, the tackle. So he's another name I think there. But yeah, I think you take Genty. You don't overthink it. Like you said, it's kind of Hunter and Carter are 1A, 1B. I think it's honestly Genty as a 1C there as well. Like they're the 3 best prospects in this class by a pretty significant margin. And yeah, I don't think you have to overthink that. You need a running back. There's a fantastic one available. You just take them.
Clayton, you good with Genty to the Raiders?
I am.
Yeah.
And think about how beautiful it'll look. Geno handing the ball off to Ashton Genty out of the backfield. That's aura right there.
That is aura right there. Okay, the New York Jets. What don't they need? This is where I think Armin Membu leaves the board.
Mm-hmm.
I think their defense is good enough to where they can address that later, but their biggest need is that offensive line, and we saw it last year. Having a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers last year, who obviously can throw the ball. He's a little bit older. Last year he was, but couldn't really protect him to the point where their offense could get anything going. So I think giving Justin Fields some protection and being able to space that line out a little bit. Plus, they lost blanking on his name on the right side, but he came to the Patriots. Morgan Moses, yeah. So plugging Armin Membu in at that right tackle, I think, is the move.
This is where I've seen like the most, like for the most part, like the first 5 picks are pretty, like everyone kind of knows what's going to happen there. 6, there's some disagreement. 7 is like kind of all over the place. I've seen people go edge, tight end, tackle, guard, like everything. But yeah, I do agree. They have to shore up that offensive line at least a little bit. And I think, yeah, Membu's the best tackle left on the board. So,
yeah.
For the Carolina Panthers, again, this is where things are starting to get a little iffy. However, I do think the biggest need for them, their defense stunk last year. It was horrific. They just couldn't rush the passer at all. And really, they could use anyone on that front 7 at any position. It would be an upgrade for them. So in saying that, I think the move here is Jalen Walker. He's like wicked versatile. I think you can kind of play him up on the edge on pass rushing downs and maybe drop him back sometimes. But I think, yeah, they just need someone on that defensive line to get some pass rush because it is bleak out there in Carolina at the moment.
Yeah, I like it. Jalen Walker, book it in. Okay, the New Orleans Saints. We talked about it. Shedeur Sanders, you thought he's a first-round pick for sure, just not at the 3 spot. Do you think 9 is the spot for Shedeur?
I think
amid the Derek Carr injury surgery news last week.
I think if you're the New Orleans Saints, your team is in like cap hell. Like you just can't fix it. Again, Shedeur Sanders, like he's he's first round prospect. There are just so many better players on the board at this point that I don't know if you could reach that high. Maybe if you could find a trade back partner or something, I could understand it in like the late teens, early 20s, somewhere in there. But yeah, in my opinion, it's just they have too many needs everywhere else, and Shedeur isn't going to uplift that team to any meaningful level. So, in my opinion, for the Saints, I think they're kind of in the same boat as the Panthers. They need pass rush. They need an edge. They need somebody. I don't know who I like the most there. I'd say Shamar Stewart is definitely up there. And I also think that Michael Williams is up there as well. But they could really use just about anybody because they have so much money on the books right now that they just need good players at any position.
Yeah, I like the edge pick. Um,
So then really it kind of just comes down to who is the best one there. I think, like I said, Michael Williams is up there. Shamar Stewart would be. I even think like Mike Green, maybe. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on who it should be?
I'm not super tapped in on the defensive side of the ball, but
Okay.
I've seen a lot of hype around Shamar Stewart. I guess Mike Green, but
he'll fit. I think Shamar Stewart would probably be the move here. I would go with him.
Yeah. All right, the Bears. I think the Bears are upset that Genty didn't fall to them. Obviously, they brought in Ben Johnson as their head coach, traded for a bunch of offensive linemen, kind of strengthening up that front line. It seems as though they've been all in on offense this offseason. I've seen a lot of things where they're going to reach down the board here and grab Omari and Hampton at running back. Do you have any thoughts on that, Terrell?
That is, in my opinion, a bit too high. If Genty was there, I would snatch him up immediately. Once you start hitting the rest of this running back class, they're all very good. That's just a little rich for me at 10.
Especially when you can get a guy like Trevion Henderson in the early second.
Like it's a very, very deep class. So it wouldn't be the end of the world, I think, if they took a running back because it is a giant need for them. But I just think that they have too many other holes to fill on this team to reach that high. Like they could use a new tackle. They could use a tight end. They could use a whole bunch of defensive positions. I think for them, I don't know. That's tough, man. Like Kelvin Banks is a name we brought up already. Caleb Williams was getting harassed all year. Sorry, I guess this is your pick. I shouldn't even be.
It's open for discussion.
I'm given information to an opposing GM here. That's my bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like they just have so many other needs. I think it is kind of a best player available sort of thing. Kelvin Banks is very good at tackle. But yeah, I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on the guys who are left?
I mean, I've heard a lot about Mike Green being a special edge rusher.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a need. Like I said, they've attacked the offense all offseason, haven't really made a whole lot of defensive moves. So maybe they go defense in the first, attack second, offense in the second. I'm also thinking selfishly because I want the Niners to get Kelvin Banks.
Well, unfortunately, I'm picking for the Niners, and they will be taking a kicker in the first round.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
You don't have to worry about that.
Okay. I think no, I'm going for it. I'm taking Omari and Hampton.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, I think offense is the move regardless of where you go, because I think with Caleb Williams, you have to put a somewhat decent system around him just to see what you have in him.
For sure.
You can worry about the defense once you know you have a good quarterback. But
11's where Shador goes. They need a quarterback.
So true. I mean, do you want to be paying Brock Purdy $50 million a year? Personally, I wouldn't. But I guess to each their own, I suppose. For San Francisco, I think they need really everything on the offensive line except for center. They could use a tackle. They could use a guard. They could use defensive tackle. They could use edge. So there are a lot of good players at all those spots left. And it's going to pay me no matter who I put here because it's going to be a good defensive player and they're going to terrorize the Seattle Seahawks for the foreseeable future. But I think in terms of D tackles that have a ton of potential, Walter Nolan is maybe the highest amongst that group. Obviously, I think you have to develop him a little bit. I know that San Francisco can do that. He should be pretty high up on the board.
26
overall.
Oh, really? Regardless, I think you're betting on the talent there. You're betting on him panning out. And his athletic upside is like just about as high as anybody in this class. And there's a lot of other names you can go with here. I'm definitely taking Walter Nolan, though.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. The Niners lost like everybody on their defense this year.
Mhm.
Everybody left. So I think you got to start building that back up.
And it's like you could go edge too, but like I don't know. I just think the upside of Nolan it's too much to pass up on. So that's how I'd be taking that for sure.
Clayton, you want to take a swing at the Cowboys here?
No.
You'll do better than Jerry Jones, whatever you do. I will say that. Low bar to clear. I have just a list of like positional team needs pulled up here, so I'll find the Cowboys quick.
Okay.
Okay.
Seen lots of Tet to the Cowboys. Tet fallen at the start of this kind of draft cycle. Tet was for sure, I think, top. I don't think he was going outside of like 9. Like I don't think he would fall past the Saints back then. But things have kind of changed, and people are lower on Tet now than they were a while ago. Do you think that's where Tet falls?
It pains me to say because I think, boy, would I love him in Seattle. But yeah, I do think receivers obviously a giant need for them. CeeDee Lamb was out there playing. He was playing one-on-one. It was only him out there. They need a second guy. I think Tet is the next best receiver in this class after Hunter. I think that's a pretty obvious pick here.
Okay. The Miami Dolphins. Oh boy. I think you got to go defensive side of the ball. If anything, maybe the line, but like on offense, they don't need a weapon on offense. They're fine there. Wide receivers short up. Running back is fine. Tight end is whatever, but I think you're fine on offense. So defense, I think Will Johnson finally falls here. Top corner in the league if you're kind of disregarding the hybrid that Travis Hunter is. I think they go Will Johnson.
That is exactly who I was going to say because there have been reports that Jalen Ramsey is maybe going to be on his way out. So, yeah, I think Will Johnson's definitely the move there. That brings up the Indianapolis Colts. Again, this is tough. I do think that kind of in the same vein as any other team that needs or has a young quarterback and wants to see how they develop, I think this is the year for Richardson. If it doesn't pan out, like this is the end for him in Indianapolis at least. And I think one thing that he absolutely needs is like a reliable, like just blanket guy that you can get the ball to on short passes because we know he can throw the ball 65 yards downfield. He has to get better at everything in between that point. And I do think it's going to be between Colston Loveland and Tyler Warren here. It kind of just depends on what they prefer. I got to find – it's just so tough. They're both such good players. I think you wouldn't mind either one of them there. I do think that ultimately Warren is overall the better player. However, I do think that Colston Loveland is a better receiver than Warren is. So I think I would go with Loveland here.
Okay, I was going to argue for Tyler Warren. I think we saw at Penn State that he's that gadget, trick play, can do anything you ask of him kind of player. And I started laughing because I forgot the Colts coach, Shane Steichen. So I just searched up Colts coaching staff, and the OC is Jim Bob Cooter.
Forgot about Jim Bob.
Completely forgot about that. What a legend! But no, I think they go tight end either way here. I think Colton Loveland's going to be great, but yeah.
It's a preference thing, and I do think that Loveland's the better receiver. But if they took Warren here, I think it would be a home run as well. So
yeah. Okay, the Falcons definitely attacking defense here. I think this is where we see Mike Green go off the board. He was kind of in the top 3, top 4 edge rushers, and this is a very deep class of edge rushers, but I think that locks down a need for the Falcons.
I could see that. I could also see them, like, really they just need, like, anyone on the defensive line. They need corner, they need safety, they need pretty much everything. I think, like, Jede Barron is a guy you could look at as well as a corner, but they don't have pass rush. They don't draft pass rushers in the first round, like, ever. It's just not something that they do. They need someone that can, like, just get some push immediately, and I think Mike Green is that guy. I really like him. I think this would be a great pick for Atlanta, and yeah, they just need pass rush.
Mike Green it is. All right, the Cardinals. I mean, last year they took Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, early overall. I think they're kind of questioning their offense right now under Kyler Murray. They've kind of set him up to succeed, and nothing has come from it. I think they give Kyler another year, and if things don't kind of turn around, I think he might be out the door. That being said, I think their defensive needs are bigger than their offensive needs.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the Falcons just getting to the ball, needing a guy to create some chaos early, and I think Cardinals need that too. And Derek Harmon, I think, is the pick.
I could definitely see that. I was going to say really anywhere on that defensive line is what they need. And yeah, I mean, he's fantastic. I think, again, you could see a guy like Barron go off the board here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if Nolan was here, I think they would take him as well. I think, yeah, but I would not be mad at Derek Harmon there at all. I think that's a great pick.
It was between him and Michael Williams for me, but I think just from watching the Eagles last year, defensive tackle is such an important position right now, and I think it's just only going to get more important. So I think they try and attack that with Harmon.
I definitely agree. Okay. Which brings up the Cincinnati Bengals.
Matthew Golden.
Pardon?
Matthew Golden, wide receiver.
Let's do it, man. If we can, it's already a strength. Why not make it even better? You know, I can see it happening for sure. I don't know, man. The thing is, it's so obvious here. Like, if they do anything other than shore up the trenches on either side of the ball, it's a mistake by them. I think people are gonna, flock to say it has to be offensive line, but I mean, they just lost Trey Hendrickson, and he was the only guy on the defense that does anything. If Mike Green was still here, I think that would be the pick for me. And I think they would have run that card up to the stage. However, he is no longer available. And at this point, I think some of the other offensive line talents are starting to thin out a little bit. For me, it's between Shamar Stewart and Kelvin Banks at tackle.
Shamar was picked.
Oh, did he go earlier?
I believe so.
Yeah, Shamar was 9 to the Saints.
Okay, well, that makes it easier for me then. I think, yeah, you just have to, like, whoever there, I think they need something in the trenches. I think this is where Kelvin Banks goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a need. I think Bengals fans and NFL fans will clown the Bengals for making that pick. As good of a tackle as Kelvin Banks could, and I think will be, the defense for the Bengals is just terrible. They got nothing outside of Hendrickson. I think Bengals fans would be pissed at that pick.
I mean, I could see it, but at the same time, it's like, are you going to be mad? Like, your offensive line has been one of the worst in the league since Burrow's come in. Mm-hmm. And you've been clamoring for offensive line help since that point. Mm-hmm. And now it's like you get that tackle and you're like, no, I don't know. I think it could go either way, but I think at a certain point you kind of have to protect your your franchise quarterback, and at the same time, you were giving up 40 points a game last year with Trey Hendrickson. How much worse could it get, you know?
Yeah.
You got your receivers locked down. Let's give Joe Burrow another half second to throw the football, and hopefully you can put up 50 a game. And also, this is a pretty good defensive line class, and offensive tackle is going to start to thin out pretty quick past this point. The only other guy I think you would consider is Josh Simmons, and obviously he has the big injury concern. So I think Kelvin Banks is a more sure pick, and you get a big need fixed immediately.
Yeah. Clater, Seahawks are on the board.
So, Terrell, you can either pick a receiver, a guard, or an edge rusher.
I think those are all very reasonable things. And I'm going to fix two problems at one time here because I am going to go with Gray Zabel. He is guard. He can flex to center if they need him to. And honestly, if we were doing trades, I think this is a spot where they could look to maybe trade back. But at the same time, if he's on the board,
if Shador's at this point, does Seattle trade to a team that needs a quarterback?
I'm looking at a certain Pennsylvania team, just a couple of picks down here, that I think would maybe consider it. But at the same time, the two teams are jumping probably would not be looking to, pick a quarterback. However, if the Giants were looking to trade it back into the first round, they probably would have to leapfrog Pittsburgh. So I could see it happening that they could make some sort of trade with the Giants, but I think then they'd be moving too far back. So for me, you have a good offensive guard. John Schneider, please, for the love of everything, you got to fix the offensive line. Sam Darnold is going to be 6 feet under week one if we don't patch some holes up there. So I'm going Gray Zabel here, and I am incredibly happy with that pick that he made it to Seattle.
Okay.
All right, Gray Zabel to the Seahawks. The Bucks. Like I said, I'm not super tapped in on defense. I'm a little bit shakier here. But Pro Football Sports Network is saying the biggest need is cornerback, and safety, and edge. Well, every position on the defense, actually. I think you could take your pick between Barron, Starks, Williams, maybe Campbell, but I think you go Williams here, Michael Williams.
Yeah, I would not be mad at that. I think, at that point, you're kind of just hoping for the best. And there's a lot of good defensive players at a lot of positions for them, and they need kind of everybody. I could see Jahdae Barron going here. I could see Jihad Campbell. I could see Starks. There's just kind of everybody. So you take the guy you like the most there, and I think, Michael Williams. I'm perfectly fine with it. Which brings up the Denver Broncos. As I was looking through the teams that I was picking for, I was like, man, there's kind of a lot of teams that I would, if I could sabotage, I would. Denver, they've started a rivalry after the Russell Wilson trade. Not much of a rivalry, for being honest, but they insist on making it a thing. This would be another spot where a kicker might go. But we have to make – yeah, true. Let's get a QB competition in there. We all know Bo Nix isn't making it long term.
Non-Pro Bowler Bo Nix.
Very true.
Yeah.
For Denver, this is another spot where I think if Hampton hadn't gone off the board, I would be definitely looking at him here. But then after that point, I know their defense looked pretty good last year. They had some good performances against horrific teams, but anytime they came up against an actual offense, they got lit up. Happened against the Ravens, happened against the Bills in the playoffs. I think they have to start looking at defensive guys here. And you're going to be looking at edge. And at this point, I think some of the best guys available at that spot are probably James Pierce Jr., and maybe Donovan Eziraku would be the other guy. So it kind of just depends on who you like more between those two. But I think with Denver, they can kind of opt to take a chance on a guy that could develop. And I think James Pierce Jr. is that guy. I think you're betting on the upside there. And I think you'd be happy with that pick if you're Denver.
James Pierce Jr. All right. I think this one's pretty easy. Steelers.
Don't even have to talk about it, really.
Shooter, top 5 pick going into this. Slides to 21. I think that's an insta-lock.
I mean, we said on the show, like, if he falls past New Orleans at 9, it's kind of a slide past that point because then who else needs a quarterback? There isn't really that many teams. And then he could really fall all the way to Steelers. So I think that's a good pick for Pittsburgh.
Yeah. The Bolts at 22. I think they look to give Herbert another option here. And, like, I'm between Tyler Warren and Matthew Golden here. But I think Tyler Warren is kind of a difference maker with what he does and what he can do. And I think Greg Roman is going to take a guy like that. So Tyler Warren is my pick here.
I think if you're the Chargers, you'd be ecstatic if either of Loveland or Warren fell to you.
Yeah.
I think that's like best case scenario for them. So I would be quite happy if I were a Chargers fan. But that brings up the Green Bay Packers. And for me, I know it's a thing, they have so many talented wide receivers. Clearly that did not work last year. So I think you have to take a receiver here. It depends on who you like the most. But in my opinion, I think the best guy on the board right now is the guy that's currently at the top of the board in Matthew Golden. You just need a guy that can be like the X number 1 receiver, and then hopefully having that attention on him can take some of the burden off the other guys in that locker room. So I think for Green Bay, I'd be taking Golden, and I'd be quite happy about it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Minnesota. What do you think here? This Minnesota is a trade down candidate that I've seen a lot, and a lot of Patriots mocks are saying trade some picks to get into 24 and take Josh Simmons here if you're the Patriots, but just because I think he's not going to fall past Houston at 25. But for the sake of this mock, there aren't any trades.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a spot where they could use some pieces on defense. I think you look at corner is probably a need for them. I think safety is probably a need for them. Like even linebacker maybe. I think it'd have to be either corner, safety, or edge though. And in my opinion, the best corner left on the board is probably Jahdae Barron. I think it's kind of him and Will Johnson. Obviously, Travis Hunter's the first, but then after that, I think it's him and Will Johnson as the next 2 best corner prospects. So that would be my vote here. I think he could kind of slot in wherever on that defense, and I think he'll pan out quite well in the NFL.
I like it. Yeah, I kind of already went through this, but I think Josh Simmons is off the board here. If you're the Houston Texans, they lost their entire line, and it wasn't really a good line last year. So I think you got to take a guy with the potential to be a really good starter in the NFL, and that's Josh Simmons, and hope he can stay healthy.
The one thing I would say is that they maybe wouldn't want to – I would still go Josh Simmons here, but they maybe wouldn't want to take a chance on a guy with an injury history like that. Or I guess not a history, but he's coming off a major injury. And I think the other option there would be Tyler Booker, but I think that Josh Simmons is just the better prospect and at a more valuable position. So I would go Simmons here as well.
Adds to that stacked offensive line with all-pro snub Laken Tomlinson.
Very true. Houston Texans fans are going to learn, man.
Oh, they're going to learn.
They're going to learn something. Which brings up, again, another team that they might have to look into a punter or a kicker here, the Los Angeles Rams. They need linebacker badly. Like, it is horrific, their linebacker room. And I think it's pretty easy here to look at Jihad Campbell and say, that's our guy. I think the next biggest thing for them would be another corner, but now with Will Johnson and Jahdae Barron off the board, I think it's pretty easy to just see Jihad Campbell and say, yeah, we need another linebacker. He's the guy right there.
Okay, the Baltimore Ravens. You think Booker goes off the board here?
I don't know. I think they're kind of in a weird spot because they have some pretty big needs, but they're also such a good team. I think they could kind of take whoever and just hope, they can get carried by their top end talent. I think, like they kind of need defensive line though. Like they need it bad.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. Guard would be nice if there was, if they had the luxury of taking one. But when there's guys like Kenneth Grant still left on the board, or did I imagine that Kenneth Grant is still on the board?
No, he's still on the board.
He's still on the board. Okay. When there's, like I said, Eziraku, Scorton's still there. So, like, I think they just have to go defensive line. And I don't know who I like the most for them. I don't know. It's just whatever defensive lineman you guys like best. And I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on who's left. Like you said, you haven't been tapped into defense too much.
No.
We already kind of harped on the importance of having a strong interior defensive line. And then after that, you can kind of build around it. I think Kenneth Grant might be the move there at D tackle. And then after that, you can kind of shore up the edge later. Again, this is a pretty good defensive line class. So if they found someone else later, I wouldn't be shocked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like Kenneth Grant a lot, and I think he would fit in well in Baltimore.
Yep. The Lions. We're not going to take safety because breaking news, Kirby Joseph becomes highest paid safety in NFL history with 4-year, $86 million deal.
Wow.
Yeah. So
interesting.
He's going to be the guy there. I don't know here, Terrell.
I can give you a pointer here. The second that Aiden Hutchinson went down, the defensive line was like garbage. They didn't have anyone else on the edge to pass rush.
Yeah.
I think that is easily their biggest need. And I think you have a couple of guys available there that would be pretty decent choices for them. I think Scorton would be an option, obviously. I've already said Eziraku's name a few times, but I think I might like Scorton just a bit more. So, but yeah, I think any edge you take would probably be the move here.
Yeah, Scorton locked in.
Which brings up the Washington Commanders. Now, this is a team where they kind of do have a lot of needs, despite obviously being so high in the draft here. I think receiver for them is a big one, but then obviously that defense was getting torched all year. They could use an edge. They could use tackle. They could use corner. But Josh Simmons no longer on the board. Banks no longer on the board. Barron Johnson, they're no longer on the board. So I think it's kind of down to Luther Burden at receiver or Chavon Ravel at cornerback. I didn't even realize Egbuka is still here as well. He's not like the ex-receiver kind of archetype.
No, he's like a slot guy.
Mm-hmm. And they kind of already have that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's tough, man.
It's tricky because I don't think Egbuka deserves to fall this much, but just the way the teams are positioned, they just have bigger needs than wide receiver.
Yeah, but I think it will be between Luther Burden and Egbuka. And I think I probably prefer Egbuka over Burden. But then it's like, is he going to be like the star receiver, like number one? I guess you already have McLaurin to kind of fill that role.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think they're both good players. I do think that Egbuka is maybe I prefer him by a little bit. And it's Ohio State receiver.
Yeah.
It can't possibly fail.
I think with the Luther Burden thing too, Washington traded for Debo this year, and that's kind of the comp for Luther Burden. Obviously, Debo's a little bit older now, maybe he can't do that gadget stuff that quite to the ability that he used to. But I think with him there, that kind of fills the role that Luther Burden would fill. So I like it. Yeah.
Brings up the Buffalo Bills. I think it comes down to defensive line and corner. I already mentioned Trevon Revelle. I really like him. He's another guy that's coming off a big injury, though. Maxwell Hairston would be another guy you could look at here. Unfortunately for Buffalo, a lot of the top of the line defensive tackles are kind of already off the board. So I think it does come down to corner. And yeah, I don't know. I guess it could also go safety maybe. But I'm a big Trevon Revelle fan. I like him a lot. Plus I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Eastern Carolina University uniforms. They're sweet. He's got swag. He's got aura. Trevon Revelle is a good name. He passes the name test, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like the weird like monochrome purple helmets. They look sweet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he's got aura down. There's no doubting it. And I think corner is a big need for them. So I don't know. That'd be where my head is at. I don't know if you have any other different opinions.
No, I like it.
I think that's pretty easy. Okay. Picking for Darth Vader and the rest of the evil empire of Star Wars here, the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know.
I think it's between offensive line. Yeah, kicker.
Yeah, kicker really could go off the board here. I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
Get that bum Harrison Butker out of the league, in my opinion. Who cares?
Yeah, that would actually be a good pick for them.
The vibes would be better. We will say that.
Yeah. I think you go trenches here, offensive line.
It has to be.
Yeah.
I think their tackles sucked so bad. Fortunate for the rest of the league, unfortunate for Kansas City that now there are not really a lot of the top of the line tackles left. I think we've kind of already, with Simmons off the board, that would maybe be the last guy I would look at there. But their guards are also already kind of sorted, is the other thing. And then past that point, I think Josh Connerly is like the next best tackle.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's tough for them. Sorry, Kansas City. You've had it too good for too long.
Yeah.
Things haven't fallen perfectly this time.
I do think they go Connerly here. I don't think he's a guy that's going to fall out of the first. Selfishly, I would want him to if we don't end up going Campbell, but I think Connerly goes here.
Unfortunately, at the Senior Bowl, he got dunked on by Mike Green, and that was the only clip I ever saw him at the Senior Bowl. So he is now a 7th-round talent. That's unfortunate for him.
Yeah. I'm booking in Connerly here. Final pick of the first round, the Philadelphia Eagles, reigning Super Bowl champions.
I mean, in terms of teams that don't really have crazy needs, I would say Philly's probably one of them. I think, however, this has fallen quite perfectly for them because I would say safety is one of their biggest. Safety and then corner. However, with Starks and Emanwari both on the board, I think it has to be one of those two guys.
Yeah.
Obviously, Emanwari is he blew up the combine and everyone loves him and he's fantastic and all of these great things. I am not as big of a fan of him as some other people are. I think he's a great athlete, but we've seen great athletes fail in the past. And I do like Malachi Starks more as a safety. I just have the feeling that he could be a guy where with Emanwari, where he could, in 2 years, you could be having talks about, well, maybe we can move him to linebacker and he'll work there. Whereas Starks, I think you're getting a starting free safety to roam the middle of the field right off the bat. And that's, I think, what they need in Philly. Him and Reed Blankenship, they're going to be cooking.
All right. Malachi Starks. That completes the first round of our 2025 mock draft.
And obviously, everything that happened here, this is exactly how it's going to go in real life too. And not only that, all of the players that we picked will be good, especially if it's your favorite team. They're going to be really good. If it's a team within your division that you dislike, they're going to be bad. So,
unless it's the Seattle Seahawks.
True, unless it's the Seahawks, in which case they could pick anyone there and they'll be Pro Bowl first year. So,
and Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter won't be good. So Will Campbell was a steal at 4.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. When Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter both mysteriously go missing the night after the draft, you're going to be thanking the good Lord that you picked Will Campbell at 4.
Oh, you bet. Okay.
Let's talk some NBA.
Let's do it.
We've got the playoffs underway there as well. And what series did you guys want to start with here?
Well, why don't we start with our brackets so we can talk about who we think was going to win. I have it pulled up on my phone in case you guys don't. All 3 of ours.
Yeah, you go first.
I had the Lakers winning.
I was gonna start with saying who we disagreed with, because there were a couple of picks that we were not on the same page on. The first of which is in the West, where I was the only one of the 3 of us to pick the Nuggets over the Clippers. I'll let you guys go first. You're the majority. What made you pick the Clippers there?
Well, you said that they didn't have really many guys outside of Jokic, so I'm picking the Clippers here. My explanation isn't probably as detailed, so.
Oh, that's fine.
I was going to say the same thing, Clayton. Like the supporting cast around Jokic isn't what it was when they won the championship a few years ago. Jamal Murray has looked fine, I think. I don't think we've seen anything special from him. Game 2, Michael Porter Jr. kind of woke up and had a game, but I just think this Clippers team is different. Kind of been a team in the last ever that you never trusted to really do anything in the playoffs, but this year seems different. Seems like Kawhi is fully healthy. Harden is peaking at the right time. People are talking about Zubac like he could have been most improved player. I think they're going to edge out the Nuggets.
I could definitely see it. I think that unfortunate for the Nuggets lesson that the Clippers have learned is that let Kawhi shoot the ball 20, 25 times a game, and you'll probably end up winning. It took him he didn't put up a great scoring performance. It was very efficient, but he just didn't shoot the ball that much in game 1 for the Nuggets to eke out a win in overtime. And then it took a pretty good Harden performance as well with 32. But yeah, I think if game 2 Kawhi is the Kawhi we're getting for the rest of the series, I think it's honestly not even going to be close, which is unfortunate, obviously, because they did pick the Nuggets. But if anything else, we could also start seeing some Jokic nuclear games. It could just happen. I think Zubac is a good matchup for him. But yeah, I don't know. Even with a good matchup, Jokic can still just he can blow you up. Just happens sometimes. But yeah, I think if anything, the Clippers have shown that, they are a much better team than people are expecting. And as long as you have a healthy Kawhi Leonard, you can really be picked to do just about anything in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And then we agreed on everything else in the West. We took OKC over the Grizzlies, obviously the Lakers over the Timberwolves, which is looking like it could be a pretty good series. And then we all took Golden State over Houston as a big upset. Houston is the 2 seed there. And so far, I don't know about you guys. My rationale was really as simple as playoff Steph Curry, playoff Jimmy Butler, and then a young Rockets team. That's as simple as it gets. And then obviously in the first game, they held them to a pretty low score. It was only 95-85. But, Curry and Jimmy both looked fantastic. So what can you say?
Yeah. At the trade deadline when Jimmy went to the Warriors, I was hating. I was wrong. Man.
It happens, man. It happens to the best of us.
Playoffs. I forgot about playoff Jimmy. And,
he just coasts throughout the regular season, and then as soon as he gets the playoffs, he turns it back up.
Yeah.
And he's really exactly what the Warriors needed. So he's been fantastic. And then Curry is like still just some of those shots he was hitting in that game were like, what can you do, man?
The one over Jalen Green, fading right, moon ball. Like, I literally said to Jana as soon as he released it, I was like, there's no way this goes in, right? And it's just the cleanest shot you've ever seen in your life.
I think if it was anyone except Curry, people would have been like, oh, fluke shot, like that, whatever that went in, like that shouldn't count. It's Curry. It's like, okay, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in the West, the only thing we disagreed on there was the Nuggets and the Clippers. But in the East, there are a couple more that we disagreed with. Obviously, we're all on the same page about the Cavs. We think they're going to beat the Heat there. But the next series, you guys both picked the Milwaukee Bucks. I took the Indiana Pacers. Again, you're the majority here. I'll let you start with your rationale.
There is no rationale. I'm wrong. I need to stop.
You're giving up?
Oh, I'm so done with this Bucks team. It's Giannis and some bums. I know Bobby Portis had a good game in game 2, and Dame's coming off the blood clots, so it's like there's excuses there. But outside of that, what an awful team. The Pacers just look miles better.
Yeah.
I did have the Bucks in 7, so maybe there's some miraculous comeback, but I don't see it.
It would have to be like Dame comes back to form immediately and Giannis continues the carry job. Other than that, it's like this Pacers offense is so good. Siakam's been fantastic. Halliburton doesn't ever put up like the craziest stat line ever, but he is such a good like facilitator of that offense. Like 12 assists in game 2, 21 points, only 3 turnovers. He's just ridiculous. And then obviously
a revenge game off the
true.
Player poll calling him most overrated.
Most overrated in the league.
Yeah.
Siakam's been great. That's good to see. We love our boy Spinny P. Nembhard has been fantastic.
Canadians are showing out in the playoffs, man. They're doing good.
And then Miles Turner has been hitting some good shots as well. So, like, all the big pieces for this Pacers team have been performing really, really well. And for the Bucks, it's Giannis, and then you gotta hope and pray. And I would say for Dame, there's an excuse. He has the blood clots. He's coming back, talking trash off the bench, and then coming back your first game, dropping 14 on 30% from the field. I'm sorry, like you can't do that, man. You can't do it. I don't care if you're coming off a big injury like that. So yeah, tough for the Bucks. I just think that this Indiana offense is just gonna really overwhelm them, and unless we get like more superhuman performances from Giannis, it's going to be hard to see them pulling this one out.
Yeah.
And now the next series, another one that we disagreed on. You guys both took the Knicks over the Pistons. I did take the Pistons here. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going first with my rationale because my rationale is that I do not like the New York Knicks and I do like the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, I think that they're a good team anyways, the Pistons, so it wasn't like I thought I was picking some crazy underdog that didn't have a chance. Cade's been fantastic. Schroeder had a great game. And more than anything else, Jalen Brunson, man, like he is considered, I think, a star player in the league at this point. Is there a less fun star player to watch than Jalen Brunson? Like, it is abysmal basketball when he's out there.
You cut out the fouls, and I think he's electric, but it is just so much like 2020 Trae Young, like jumping backwards into defenders. Like, it's tough to watch that, but I think you cut that out, and he's
awesome.
A hitter. He just won Clutch Player of the Year. They just announced that, and I think for good reason. But you keep going with your analysis.
Like, there is no analysis. It's just going to be me hating. He is like watching him play basketball is so frustrating because it's like the Embiid situation where Embiid is clearly so talented and he is so much fun to watch when he is not foul baiting. But then he like he was running down the floor and hooked Asar Thompson's arm and then drew a foul, or flopped and Asar fouled out on that play and then celebrated the foul out. It's like so many things are just so annoying about the New York Knicks, their fan base being part of it, where I'm like, I can't see them win. And at Detroit, it's a fun story, man. Like the Pistons, I think they had one of the biggest turnarounds in terms of winning percentage from last year to this one. Cade's awesome.
They tripled their win total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Cade's awesome. Tobias Harris has been having a great series for Detroit. Schroeder, like I said, has been doing great. And then you have, defensive menace, Asar Thompson. And if Malik Beasley can start hitting some shots as well, I think Detroit can really pull the series out. But pretty much, yeah, this was my hater pick where I didn't want to watch New York move on. And I like Detroit too much to not pick them. But, I mean, so far they've made it a pretty interesting series at the very least.
I'm on Team New York. I did. What did I pick them in here? I took New York in 5, which I think is bold. This has 7-game series written all over it. It's been super fun watching these games, and I think on the New York side of the ball, you talked about Brunson foul baiting, but I mean he's the leading scorer on this team. No question about it. He's the guy that you give the ball to in the fourth quarter because what were they down 16 or something game 1, and they came back to win off of the back of Jalen Brunson. But I think you can't disregard Cat too. His fit on this New York team is amazing. In years past, you've seen him kind of get passive and just lean on the 3 ball to be his scoring way. But I mean, this series he's been inside, really working on Jaren Duren and any mismatch that he has. I think the guys outside of those two have to get their scoring going. Like Mikal Bridges, I think had 18 the other night, but it was terrible efficiency, and it felt like he missed like 3 shots for every make in the second half. And he was the guy taking that last shot in game 2, which I don't hate the look. He was wide open at the top of the 3-point line. Jalen Brunson found him, but in the situation, in the context of that game, Mikal Bridges cannot be the guy shooting that ball. It has to be Jalen Brunson. I think if positions are swapped there, that game may have ended differently. But yeah, the other guys got to get it going for New York. Josh Hart has been good. He's kind of that hustle guy. He's not really the guy that you need to score 15 points a game, but yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at with them too. Is it's like they could be so good offensively, but then once you get outside of Brunson and Cat, if this is the performance we're getting out of Mikal Bridges, which obviously was not fantastic, didn't hit a shot in the fourth quarter, and obviously the one everyone remembers that last shot, but yeah, he was horrific in the fourth, not good in the second half. And then Cat obviously also didn't have a great game in the second game. Didn't take a lot of shots, so I think maybe you just got to give him more volume, and he can figure it out. But yeah, when Brunson drops 37 and then your next highest scorer is Bridges with 19 on bad efficiency, it's just tough to win those games. So I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if the Knicks just kind of pull it together and end up closing the series out a little faster than everyone expects. But I don't know. I think at the very least Detroit can make it an interesting series.
Yeah. I can't stick around for too much longer. I gotta go. But
that's kind of same with me. So.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll
wrap it. I was gonna say as well. The one series you didn't mention, Terrell, that we all had was Celtics winning.
That was the last one, yeah.
Do you guys think the Magic have any chance in that series?
I mean, it's 22-21 first quarter right now, so they're at least keeping it close.
I think this is the game that they could steal, but I don't think they steal more than one game. Magic are just kind of that. Magic and the Celtics at the same time are both that kind of. Magic will win one game of a series, and Boston's like good to lose one game of a series every time, and I think that's that game. But I'm not nervous for the Celtics at all.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's any team that can lose their star player and just continue to power through the playoffs, it's Boston. I have no doubt that Tatum can sit out however long he has to sit out. and they can just kind of stay afloat until he's healthy again.
Mhm.
Right now, Brown has 12 points in the first quarter on pretty good efficiency. So, yeah, I don't know. I still think Boston pulls a series out. I think I had him in 5 because, like you said, Orlando could definitely steal a game. Boston tends to lose at least one, but I don't think there's a shot that Orlando comes back and wins the series.
No.
Do you guys want to talk about your picks to win the NBA championship a little bit?
I feel like we could get there. Like, wait for the first round to finish and then move on to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I mean, hey, you picked the Lakers. They might not even make it there, man.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, who am I kidding? Our glorious king, Labubu Bear Bron James, is not winning in the first round. He won't let it happen. So,
Not winning?
or he's not. Sorry, he's making it out of the first. There's no shot that he loses.
He could never.
That LeBron guy could never win a playoff series. But yeah, I said you guys got to get out of here quick.
Yeah.
So
Is there anything else you guys wanted to touch on NBA wise?
we can. I don't think so. We had obviously our
Man of the year.
pardon.
Peyton Pritchard, 6th man of the year. Announced the other day. Yeah, I don't know.
It was like him and Malik Beasley were the two that were up for it.
Yeah.
That's okay, cool. I mean, he hits a half-court shot once every playoffs, so I think he could win it off that alone. If we're arguing 6th man of the year, like, I don't know what to tell you, man.
He's your favorite player's favorite player.
So true, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like we had our picks for MVP of the series so far. We might as well just wait till the series are over and we can do them at a later
Oh,
episode.
true. Yeah, I forgot about that. We could run through that real quick.
If we wanted to.
Yeah.
I don't know how fast is fast for you guys, but yeah.
I can take the series that I've been most tapped into is Clippers Nuggets, and I think you go Kawhi here.
Easily.
Yeah.
Where I'm missing my notes, man.
Lakers and Timberwolves. It's been Luka so far.
Yeah, I don't even think there's an argument there. I did say as another one.
Cavs and Heat. I had was looking over that, and I think it's Donovan Mitchell so far.
That might be the one I'm tapped into the least out of all.
That might be a series that I don't tap into at all.
It's going to be close. Like, I mean, they play tonight, and maybe if Boston gets out to a crazy lead, I might just flip it to the Cleveland one just to see. But yeah, like even Grizzlies Thunder, I'm watching just so I can watch SGA play. But
that was a tough one to pick a MVP for because, I mean, the Thunder went up big early on in that game, and they didn't play their starters a whole lot towards the end. But there were, I guess, 2 names for the MVP that I was deciding between. And Terrell, you can pick which one you think. Jalen Williams or Chet Holmgren.
It's tough. I do think that I would probably have to go with Holmgren, if anything, because the value he brings defensively is just so insane. And then, like you said, no one's really stood out on offense, and he's put up, I think it was 19 game 1 and 20 game 2. So, and the highest scorer so far this series for OKC is SGA with 27, but it was on abysmal efficiency. So it's not like there's one major stand-up performance offensively. So I think I would go with Chet there.
Pistons, Knicks. I know the thing is to hate on Brunson right now, but he's the MVP of this series so far. But I think because it's 1-1, you can go co-MVP Brunson, Cade.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah,
have an argument. I think they've both been the best player for their teams.
Mm-hmm. Pacers, Bucks. I think it might have to be Pascal here.
Yeah.
But I think you could easily just as argue Halliburton. Or if you want to go like the losing the series, but ultimately still the best player, it's Giannis by a pretty decent margin. Sleeper pick, Kyle Kuzma, game 1. He was out there, generational cardio performance, putting up goose eggs. He really beat out Tony Snell. He's got competition now. Plus it being in a playoff game, that really elevates it a little bit. So, I mean, Pacers MVP, game 1, Kyle Kuzma.
True.
And then what was the? Oh, we only have Rockets Warriors. I think that one's Steph.
You think so?
What else can you say, man?
I mean,
Jimmy's been good.
They had similar stats. I think the defense that Jimmy provides too is kind of maybe an edging out factor. But man, Steph Curry, he's just like, guy's insane.
I just don't know. Like, for Steph, there's not a shot in basketball that is like more demoralizing than like the stupid Steph run around fadeaway three from like 6 feet behind the 3-point line.
Yeah.
Because like you play perfect defense and then he just makes it anyways. I do agree it could really go to Jimmy as well, but in my opinion, I think it has to be Steph, especially in such a low scoring game. He put up 31
for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think we did Celtics, but I think Derek White because of his game one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only game so far. And there just wasn't really, again, not a huge stand-up performance. But 30 on good efficiency, we'll give it to you.
Cool.
Alrighty. I guess before we end off here, I want to run the gauntlet. You can follow us Instagram at the Armchair Athletes, TikTok at Armchair Athletes, Twitter or X at Chair Athletes. Terrell, I don't know, start of playoffs, what's going on in the Twitters?
Unfortunately, it's just been a lot of doom and gloom because as good as the NBA playoffs has been, the Blue Jays are still my first priority. And so far, I'm beginning to regret that decision. They might get moved to the back burner here pretty quick. Because, yeah, it's been not a lot of fun watching the Blue Jays so far.
And YouTube at the Armchair Athletes 196. That's the amount of stars I would give the 2 triple threat matches at WrestleMania. Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and CM Punk, and then Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, and Bianca Belair. Both fantastic matches.
So true.
Yeah.
Janet wasn't a fan of the Io Sky win because she was like, she looked puny compared to the other two, and it's not plausible.
The script writers, they messed it up, man.
I was happy. I was cheering for Io Sky just because she flies around and does like cool moves and stuff. Cool.
She comes out of nowhere every time. Out of nowhere, it's hilarious. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I could never cheer against Rhea Ripley. But
oh, why?
What it is. Wow. I think she's a fantastic athlete. Why are you laughing?
I respect that. I agree. Yeah, she is. She is a fantastic athlete.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, folks.